Hey, what you mean? An ounce.
One of the best friends we could ever.
And when you say you have 3 kids, we got to. Three kids, we got to.
Yo, Numion, we are live. Welcome to the chat. Hope you can hear me. Let me know if there's any problems. How we doing? You been here before, or are you a newcomer? Let me know. I'm just setting some things up. So we are live, but I'm still getting my stuff together, so to speak. There we go. That looks a little better. How we doing? I'm also going to drop a Discord link if you want to hop in the Discord and have any sort of conversation. Welcome to the channel. Welcome. Where do you stand in the spiritual realm? Do you have a intuition that God is real, that he is not real? Do you have questions like the problem of evil or anything else that sort of plagues you about this topic? We get into all sort of things theology here. You can debate me. It depends on where you stand. We might agree about everything. I'm not sure, but hold on. If you wanna debate in person, then you can join me here. And by in person, I mean, of course, on Discord. So you can use your camera, or you don't have to, but I prefer when people use the camera. Cool. Christian leaning towards orthodoxy, but I love debating religion and stuff. Me too, brother. Me too. That's all I can say about that, because I'm also a Christian, and I'm also very partial to orthodoxy, but currently a Protestant. Where are you? Are you a Protestant right now, or are you a Catholic leaning towards orthodoxy? Or are you just sort of like, for me, it's like I was getting into it, and then there's sort of no place to lay my head, so I was still like feeling my way around. I went to an Orthodox church. Have you tried that? To me, it was a little, I don't know. It just didn't totally speak to me. Um, Even though it's like, damn, like these guys might just be right. I'm not sure. It seemed like they really got all the elements. But for some reason, it just didn't speak to me. Like I'm home now. I felt more at home, weirdly, at a Catholic church, but mostly so far right now, I'm going to an Episcopalian one. But we can debate certain things. Yeah, non-denominational. Got you. Yeah, that's good. You should try. I'd say it's kind of an exciting process to shop churches around. Like, so when I was, I guess, kind of still non-denominational or didn't know where to lay my head, I went to a Catholic church first, which was amazing. I didn't like the sermon at all. It was all about how the Pope was going on a camping trip with like little girls. I was like, this is a little weird, a little on the nose. So it was like kind of a weirdly political sermon. So that turned me off a little bit, but everything else about it I loved. And then I went to the Greek Orthodox Church, and I was kissing the icons and getting down and doing the crosses like all throughout the sermon, and but just a beautiful place. So I liked that on the traditional level of like feeling like there's genuine sacraments and um, just like a very involved spiritual religious experience. But I did leave it feeling like it wasn't like my home. It just felt so foreign to me. I couldn't see myself doing that every week and feeling like I was at home there, weirdly. So then I decided to go back and try an Episcopalian church, which is almost like Catholic but Protestant, right? And they're weird. They get a lot of flack because they are weird, and there's a lot of liberal Episcopalians, but I'm definitely not a liberal Episcopalian. I'm about as conservative as it possibly gets, not politically, but like like theologically, when it comes to Episcopalians. So, the one that I found that's near me that I've been going to for the past, I don't know, at least month or so, I've really been enjoying. I think I'm gonna stick with that. I'd love to get Orthodox, but I don't agree with all the doctrines, so I'm not sure. I also don't agree with the Catholic stuff about divine simplicity and the papacy. Yeah, the papacy I am also skeptical of in terms of its infallibility. I think that doctrine seems. I mean, Gavin Orland is so good about this. If you're interested in Protestant apologetics, because you barely ever get that. It's basically the Orthodox and the Catholic that are the kings of apologetics, it seems like, on YouTube. But Gavin Orland is great at it, interdenominational apologetics, and he kind of lays out pretty clearly what he defines as accretions or like additions to the tradition after the apostles. And one thing is the infallibility of the Pope, which I don't understand. But I am curious, actually, and feel free to hop in that Discord if you want. I promise I'm a nice guy. There'll be no gotcha or anything like that. But I'm interested in what you mean about divine simplicity, because I when I hear about divine simplicity, I like it, but I'm not. I need your take on it, because I guess I don't really have a full definition of it in my head. Like, I think divine simplicity is almost necessary for certain things to be true. Like, for instance, I don't think God is made up of parts, right? Or at least God the Father, like fundamentally. So I'm interested to know what you think of that, or how you define divine simplicity, because some of it seems to me is like almost necessarily true, and then I'm sure there could be like sort of corollaries of that have weird outcomes. So let me know what you think about divine simplicity. We were in the chat the other day, and we were going through Thomas Aquinas's stuff, and I think he did have something about divine simplicity. Let's see. Let's sort of throw my desktop up here so you can see. I'm also going to move this over here. Okay. And just let me know if you want to join that Discord. That is always recommended, just for the ease of conversation. Okay, got you. Yeah. No, it's not a problem, brother. We can do it like this. This is how we do it. Lots of times. It's just easier for, honestly, just for the flow of conversation. But this will still work, totally. I don't want you to disturb your family, certainly. But you also shouldn't be afraid of putting your voice out there at the very least. Face, I could somewhat understand. Although, truly, no one's going to see it. But but voice, I think you could be bold with your voice, as long as you're not disturbing someone else. Jeez, where am I even going to start with this? All right. No, not looking for the Latin. I'm looking for the English. Okay, simplicity. The providence of God. Oh, let's see what Aquinas says about predestination. That's always an interesting one. I really can't be made of parts, but I guess my issue is more so with the idea that there's no division in God. I think the absolute divine simplicity would face some modal collapse. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find, what like someone like Aquinas would say about this, because it's once we get into modal arguments, it does get really, really in the weeds. Yeah, can God be absolutely simple? Uh, in the normal sense of those words, yeah, I guess not. It couldn't be, right? If it the Trinity itself sort of um, refutes that, maybe. Uh, so there's no distinction in God. Yeah. Well, let's do something. Let's see if I'm used to using ChatGPT to sort of like synthesize some of these things, but now I think Grok might be better. I think Grok 3 honestly might be better than ChatGPT. We'll see. I like its think. I like its think mode here. So, please summarize the Church Fathers' opinions about absolute divine simplicity. Should I make it think? Let's make it think. See how long it has to think on that one. Probably just a few seconds, honestly. The other day we had a great question that was super trippy, and Grok had to think for 1 minute and 5 seconds, which is awesome. That's how you know you're at. That's how you know you're in the right, you're in the right area. You're asking the right questions. Okay, supported Gregory of Nyssa and Augustine supported this concept of absolute divine simplicity. Portrays God as a perfectly unified being without parts or separate attributes. Here's a breakdown of the views. The core belief is that God's essence is identical to his attributes. Unlike humans, who might have qualities like kindness or strength added to their nature, God is his attributes. His power, wisdom, goodness, and so on are not distinct from his being, but are one and the same with who he is. So that makes sense. Let's see what you got. Okay, the Trinity and how we ground multiplicity within pure unity. For instance, if a painter creates a painting, then wouldn't they need to have some kind of a distinction within their mind? How we ground multiplicity within... I think my understanding of the argument would be that just because the painter can create something distinct and separate from himself, that doesn't necessarily mean the painter has added anything to himself. If any, do you understand what I mean? Like I think there's a conception that there is separation between God and his creation, but that doesn't mean that there's separation within God himself. Does that make any sort of sense? Hey, yo, Alex, welcome, brother. Welcome back to the chat. Talking about divine simplicity. Trying to get to the bottom of that because that's a complicated topic. We'd welcome any of your thoughts on that, and of course, we'll always drop that in there just if anyone wants to join. So let's see if Augustine has any. That's my intuition. I haven't gotten into it, Numenon, but it seems like just because a painter couldn't do, just with the example of God being a painter, just because he could create something that's different than himself, doesn't mean he isn't full, isn't complete. Does that make any sort of sense? Let's see what Augustine has to say. In his work De Trinitate, Augustine emphasized that this simplicity makes God immutable, unchanging, and indivisible. He argued that God doesn't have qualities, he is them. That's interesting. This is a critical point in defending the Trinity against heresies like Arianism, which suggested a composite or divided God. Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to say that God is in any way divided. What is Mid-Journey? I don't care about Mid-Journey. Why are they giving me office hours? Okay, so then Gregory of Nyssa's perspective is Gregory reinforces by stressing that God's simplicity places him beyond human categories or limitations. Because God has no parts, he cannot be broken down or altered, underscoring his transcendence over creation, purpose, and impact. This doctrine was essential for explaining how the three persons of the Trinity share one divine essence without compromising God's unity. It also served to highlight his perfection. Okay. Let's see what the challenge that Grok poses is. The Church Fathers insisted on God's simplicity, raised question about how such a unified, unchanging being could interact. This is what your question is about the painting. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I get so for the stream, I get it, and it's hard to put into words like different thoughts and actions which give rise to a painting with distinctions. If God is pure oneness, then where do the distinctions come from? Yeah, it seems like the divine simplicity argument is a little bit different than the fact that just like God is oneness in this sort of Sikhism mode, or like I guess maybe Buddhists would say that there's like a fundamental oneness. I agree there's a fundamental unity, but that doesn't mean like same oneness. I don't think necessarily means sameness. And so the core of this argument seems to be, and we can actually I'm going to challenge Grok with your exact question in a second. So that'll be interesting to see what and by Grok it's like, do I trust what Grok has to say, or any language learning model, large language model, like implicitly? No, of course not. But you can kind of tell when they're giving you a faithful breakdown of like other people who you do trust. So like every point here, he's either quoting Augustine or Gregory of Nyssa. So that's how we're gonna do this. Basically, make Grok pretend to be Aquinas, something like that. Yeah, so how can oneness create a separate creation or interact with it? I also don't understand how Jesus could become incarnate if the God is purely one with no distinctions. Well, I mean, clearly there's, like, if we're taking the formal argument right here, it's the core belief is more so that God's essence is identical to his attributes, not that he has no differentiation. So he's simple in the sense that what he does, what he says, what he enacts is what he is, right? So unlike us, or like even your human painter, we might have these qualities, even qualities that God can have, like compassion or strength or kindness or whatever. But that's not what we like fundamentally are. Fundamentally, we're complex and messy, and if we do a kind thing, that doesn't mean we're the fullness of kindness. But so I am going to pose this to Grok in a second, but I just want to get my intuition out. So within oneness, it's not like justice isn't distinct from, say, compassion. Well, those two are quite obviously connected. But it's not like, so like justice and strength are obviously somewhat distinct, but divine simplicity just says that God is justice and God is strength. It doesn't say that there's like no like categories or distinctions. And I guess we could imagine that on this like infinitieth dimension, maybe these things just like merge together. But from our perspective, they seem multiplicitous, like justice and strength and mercy or something. Maybe they all just merge into love. But so that when God creates, and say when it's time for Jesus to incarnate into the world, that's when we notice, that's when we can perceive the distinction. Does that make sense? That might make sense, actually. So like, if we were living in the plane, in the realm that like God lives in, maybe we wouldn't even be able to perceive anything as having distinction. But it's just the nature of us living in this sort of like dense material realm where we live, that we can notice these distinctions that on a certain level are not distinctions. Let me know if that makes any sort of sense. That's totally me like riffing, so I'm not gonna attribute that to any church father. Okay, so yeah, let's push on this challenge. Okay, so does this mean, according to the church fathers, that there are no distinctions between the varying no distinctions within God's essence? What's up, David? Yeah, I'll send you that link. You mean the one that I got pulled down for last time that we were watching? Wasn't that crazy? This is also a little sneak peek into what I watch normally. Matthew McConaughey shuts down atheist Hollywood with the Bible for 15 minutes. We're not gonna watch that. That sounds boring. But okay. Let's see. Hilbert's Hotel Paradox. I think it was a TEDx video. Yeah, it was this one. I will get that link. Copy. I think this is the video I don't know if you were in that stream, David, but I was watching a video and then everyone was like, wait a second, where'd you go in the chat? And I looked and it was like I had been copyright stricken, so they canceled my stream. But then they put it right back up after I stopped watching the video. But okay, here's what the church fathers would have to say. Seems like it's a little different, surprise, surprise, than what old Reese would have to say. Sure, Newman. I'll get into that. I'll get into my favorite argument. It's a good question. It's like, is it the argument that converted me that you're interested in, or is it the argument that I find to be the most like intellectually fun and engaging, and just like interesting to think about? Because those are two different ones. But okay, so let's finish this though. So according to the church fathers, there are no distinctions within God's essence. They upheld the doctrine known as absolute divine simplicity, which asserts that God is perfectly unified and indivisible, without parts or separate attributes. Here's what this means. Okay, that's what they just said. For example, God doesn't possess attributes like goodness or wisdom as separate qualities added to his nature. Instead, his goodness is his wisdom, which is his power, and so forth. Oh, so that is actually what I'm saying. Oh, old Reese sometimes gets one right every now and again. That's exactly what I was saying. Like, on this highest level, in the realm in which God exists, or whatever, is fundamentally, it's not like these things are separate. They just are all merged into one, which is a great way of thinking about what God actually is. It's the unity, and then everything that we perceive, like, flows out of that into multiplicity. But as you move back up the ladder to where it proceeds from, it's all unified. And so there is no difference between goodness and power, because there's no evil, right? Or just in general, let's see. I think it can all be, that's why I think there's a really important, is it Galatians, where it says God is love? Oh, the strongest argument, in my opinion? It depends on who you're talking to. So, for most of the people in this chat who are like sort of agnostic, leaning towards materialist type people, I think the fine-tuning argument is the strongest. That is going to be, I have not heard any atheist have any reasonable explanation for how the fine-tuning of the universe could possibly be explained. If you want me to break that down, we can get into it. Right now, everyone that's in here has sort of heard me talk about that ad nauseum, but I will get into it, and I will break it down again. So if you're talking to someone who is like straight up atheist, like God is not possible, or they say something along the lines of like, well, how could you believe in that silliness? Then I think one of the strongest responses is, how do you believe in the impossibility of the universe existing at all, given your like assertion of basically random chaos producing what we see right here? When that is totally impossible. Yeah, David is one here. And David, if you want to hop in this chat, in this Discord, you feel free. Or if you want to propose some sort of... atheists don't say... Well, atheists do, but you're agnostic, right? Or no? Yeah, tag is really strong. That is a really strong one. The transcendental argument. That's one we haven't gotten into, and it'd be fun to sort of flesh out. So maybe we should do that. Maybe we should get into the tag argument. I'm guessing... Yeah, I got you, David. No worries. I do realize that I make this stream happen when normal people are working. It's not the most conducive to conversation, but I understand that. Anyone who wants to jump in can feel free, but absolutely no pressure. And we'll have just as much fun, well, almost as much fun doing it in the chat. So David is an atheist because he does not think there is a God. But you don't say that it's impossible for there to be a God. You don't say there there is no God. You just don't have evidence for it, or something like that. Yeah. So Numenon, in turn, we'll break down. I'll give a quick overview of how I see the transcendental argument, and then maybe we'll do a synopsis with Grok to see how it sees the transcendental argument, and maybe if we have to, or there's still questions, we can watch a video or something like that. And then I'd be interested in what people think about this transcendental argument. Yeah, no, I get you, David. That's a photographer. That's kind of cool. Photography is always interesting to me. You have your other monitor in Photoshop and Lightroom. Yeah. Okay, cool. Sweet. Well, I'm glad you enjoy listening. Well, welcome. I'm glad for that, certainly. So, transcendental argument. Let me ask. Give me. Let me show you what I'm doing here. Give me a list of the philosophical transcendentals. I spelled that horribly, but that's okay. Yeah, that's great. I'm very blessed as well to be able to like sit here in the middle of the day and do what I'm doing. So I feel you. But that's really cool. Where do you live, David? In a big city or sort of, well, Grok thinks for, is Grok gonna think for, I don't need every single transcendental. I just need like 4 or 5 to get us started. But while Grok's thinking, okay, here we go. Yeah. So in case anyone's unclear what transcendentals are, we'll give a quick definition. The philosophical transcendentals are fundamental properties that apply to all beings, right? Transcending specific categories of existence, these concepts, developed notably in medieval philosophy, are considered coextensive with being itself, meaning they are universally present in everything that exists, based on classical philosophical thought, particularly from figures like our man, Thomas Aquinas. The primary list of transcendentals includes being, that's just being, anything that exists possesses being, right? Unity, every being is one, a unified whole, distinct from being divided. This one is less intuitive, but there's obviously a way in which you can perceive that. Just take the whole system of being and define it as one thing, right? Truth, every being is true, conforming to the intellect or knowable in some way. So truth is another transcendental. Okay, yeah. Santa Barbara. Oh, nice, beautiful Santa Barbara. I love Santa Barbara. I just went up there, had a little fish taco at one of those beach restaurants. Feet in the sand, fish taco in my gullet. That was beautiful. I rode my motorcycle up there. I'm from LA, in case anyone is curious. Okay, so this is Numenon's conception of the transcendental argument. 1, it would be self-refuting to deny X. Christianity is the only worldview which doesn't deny X. Therefore, Christianity is the only worldview which doesn't refute itself. Will do, David. I'll give you a shout. Okay, we'll have to. Yeah, I'd love to have some coffee. That'd be nice. Okay, Numenon. Interesting, but I can already predict some of the questions that our friends are going to have in the chat here. Yeah, IRL debate between me and David. Okay, so for instance, your first premise, it would be self-refuting to deny X. What is X? This isn't exactly how I've heard it formulated. I'm not saying this doesn't work. I'm not saying this isn't a valid formulation. I just have some questions. So how is this a like, it would be self-refuting to deny X. I would say it would be self-refuting to deny a claim which is true, maybe, or to deny a claim which refutes itself or something. That would. So yeah, I guess I just need a definition for X, or is X supposed to represent everything? Because Christianity certainly denies some things. Anyway, so more other transcendental goodness, and every being is good. This is also unintuitive, but we have to remember that being isn't just like anything that exists is good. Or like this doesn't mean that evil is good because it's exists. The way that Aquinas would describe evil is as a privation of good. So evil doesn't actually exist. It just is sort of like the negative value of good, essentially. Oh, okay, got you. So X being any transcendental. Oh, okay, I see. Yes, this works, right. If X is any transcendental, it would be self-refuting to deny any of these transcendentals. And let me maybe, please explain the transcendentals in terms of the tag argument for the existence of God. Okay, well, that thanks. Well, so let me go through that again. Plugging in transcendentals for X. So it would be self-refuting to deny a transcendental. These things are laws of logic. They're the most basic. I don't know if we were talking to David last time, but it's basically like if you deny certain things, like for instance, the law of identity, or just basically any of the laws of logic, then you're not even having a conversation. You have to choose axiomatically like a foundation to understand the world on. And the laws of logic are not controversial in that, right? They're totally self-evident. Like, for instance, the law of identity would be that P equals P. So if that's not self-evident to you, then there's no conversation that can possibly be had, right? Because we just have to agree on certain things. Like, for instance, we are two rational, conscious beings that can have a conversation or something. Like, this isn't some sort of illusion or whatever. Although you still could argue on the basis of this being illusion. You definitely still could. But I don't think we want to do that in search of truth, because that would imply there is no truth. Okay, so let's see what Grok's got for us. To demonstrate the necessity of the transcendental argument for God's existence, it uses transcendentals, universal properties such as unity, truth, goodness, and sometimes beauty, to demonstrate the necessity of God's existence. These transcendentals are qualities that apply to everything that exists and are foundational to human experience, reasoning, and the pursuit of knowledge. The tag argues that these properties presuppose a transcendent, absolute being, God, as their ultimate grounding. Below, I'll explain how each transcendental connects to the tag and why they are seen as evidence for God's existence. And David or anyone that has questions, just stop me. Cool. What are the transcendentals? Well, we already went over some of them. This one I know is unintuitive, but like it's really just saying that the universe has some sort of, that everything has some sort of connection to everything else. I think this is not controversial. I think you could easily, even if you have to do a little bit of imagining, you can easily see and imagine how we're all connected by either space or time or something like that, to everything that's ever happened in the universe and ever will. Truth. So there just is truth. There is reality. There is something, right? Goodness. Goodness is a real thing. There is moral sort of not superiority, but moral, as they put it here, excellence or value. So that's another one. But although, to be honest, I'm sure, David, you're one of the people that's actually denied this in my chat, that there is moral value anywhere. We've had some people very depressingly say that morals are subjective, which means that there would be no moral excellence or value, because it came from chaos and randomness. So how could you possibly have subjective morality? Well, obviously you could have subjective morality, but how could you have any objective, as in existing prior to humans or outside of humans, morality, if everything is subjective? The only reason we don't have slaves is because of evolution. That doesn't seem self-evident. Okay, beauty. The property of harmony, order, and aesthetic appeal. The idea that beauty is something that exists. I agree humans make morality. Other animals seem to display moral behavior too. Sure. But if they did, that wouldn't really support your claim that morality is subjective. That would more support an objective morality claim. Otherwise, then you can't say that animals have any morality at all. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying there's no genetic component, but that's called the genetic fallacy. You're just explaining how morality gets instilled in us. You're not explaining the grounds of it, the foundation of it. Okay. So let's do a brief overview of the tag argument. The tag posits that certain fundamental aspects of reality, such as the laws of logic, moral principles, and the pursuit of scientific knowledge, cannot be explained without a transcendent foundation. It claims that these aspects rely on the transcendentals, unity, truth, and goodness. The transcendentals require an absolute unchanging source to be coherent and universal. That source is God, a divine being whose nature provides the necessary grounding. Without God, the tag argues these transcendentals and the systems they support would lack a foundation, leading to incoherence or arbitrariness. That's the problem with the genetic fallacy, or the genetic theory that morality is subjective. This word, arbitrariness. If it's subjective, if it just came from the random bumping of atoms and molecules, and then eventually chemistry, and then eventually biology, then eventually, genetics, DNA, genetic biology, that's arbitrary. That has no grounding in the objective world. There's absolutely no way that you can say under this model, because it's arbitrary, that, for instance, slavery is wrong. You cannot say that if you believe that morality only comes from genetic evolution. And it's defined by what everybody believes. Because if it's defined by what everybody believes, then for most of history, slavery wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't something that we needed to correct and fix. It was actually moral. It was actually right to have slaves, because that's what most of history looked like, and that was the subjective view of everybody. Okay, I don't know if it's subjective or objective. I can say we create morals. The foundations for being moral or good is for survival with others. Well, that's what their argument would have been for slavery. So what do you have to say to the fact that as long as enough people think it's good to do something subjectively, then that is actually moral? That doesn't defy any sort of objective morality to, for instance, support a Holocaust. As long as everyone believes it, as long as it's good for everyone's genetics, I don't agree with that. Like not killing each other, we learn from ancestors that killing each other is not good for our survival. Yeah, no, I agree with you, David, that it doesn't make it right at all because people had slaves. That definitely doesn't make it right. So that's why I'm trying to point that out to you. That, by definition, is objective morality. If everybody believes something and they're still wrong, that means there's an objective grounding for morality that makes it transcendental. Okay, I think moral intuitions are just preferences. Yeah, that's under secularist worldviews, right? So without the transcendental grounding, that's just a preference. This millennia, I feel like I do want to have slaves, but next millennia, I might not want to have slaves, and the millennia after that, maybe it'll be okay to just why don't we just kill people that are genetically inviable? Because it doesn't have anything to do with survival, so we might as well lock up and kill people that are sterile, right? And you could see how just because everyone believes something crazy like that, that doesn't actually make it good. Okay, so if that's not actually good, that means there's an objective model. There's something to compare the present day, the subjective opinions of people to. You need that. You really, really need that. Otherwise, you can never condemn evils that everybody just agrees with. They're bad. I think our world views determine the types of moral systems we can have. Yeah, true. Yeah, so that is true. There are bad actors. Of course there are. Yep, of course there are. Are you saying the secularists believe something and are wrong? Because I thought you were the secularist. So cults are like this. The point I make. Oh no, you're referring back to when I was talking about right. Like if we went in the future and everyone was like, let's sterilize infertile people, right? Or I mean, not sterilize, kill infertile people. The point I'm making is you cannot imply God because people are moral. Well, let's walk through the transcendental argument because that is important, and that's not what I'm saying. By the way, I'm not saying you cannot. I'm not saying God is implied because people are moral. I'm saying God is implied because actually people are immoral, amoral sometimes, and yet we have this intuition and this sense and this feeling that there is something beyond people which has to be which people have to be checked by, because if it's just people who are moral, it was morally correct to own slaves for most of human history, the vast majority of human history. So, yeah, I'm not saying people are moral. If anything, people are immoral. What I'm saying is, in order to have any sort of like true morality, it has to be grounded in a transcendental realm, something beyond, like bigger than us. Otherwise, you literally cannot say that slavery is wrong. It's not like morality is a proof for God, but it is evidence for God. So it's important to take seriously. That's why I need to correct you when you say, I'm implying God because people are moral. No, I'm implying God because people are immoral, and yet they somehow know to be checked by an objective morality. Like, for instance, would you say that the world is a more moral place now than it was 2,000 years ago? Would you say that we've made moral progress? Is that something you can agree to in some way? At David, does normativity exist under your view? Like this kind of oughtness? Yeah, that's technically, if David's being consistent, then there should not be. But we're trying to show him that that he doesn't have to be confined to this like restrictive worldview of subjective morality. Morality can and does, he sneaks that in there, exist without a God. Yeah, morality, subjective morality can, but objective morality cannot. And what subjective morality allows you to say and do is that if enough people believe something to be good, i.e. slavery, i.e. subjugation of women, then it is actually good. That's what your worldview costs, David. I don't know if you're prepared to accept that. But that is what you're saying when you say that morality can and does exist without a God. It's a very, very flimsy one that does, and it leads to really horrible outcomes. Okay, nobody agrees on all models, and different people. And also, welcome. I'm famous minor, or infamous minor. Sorry, it's all small on my screen here. Nobody agrees on all models, and different people have their ideals of said morals. This can be interpreted as what we would expect under either morality structures, objective or subjective. Nobody agrees. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't see it. It certainly doesn't conflict with the objective morality that people would interpret morality differently, that they would not be able to understand it perfectly as God does, and therefore you would have differences all over the place. But if we're being honest, though, if we're being really honest, the cases in which, like, for instance, murder or honestly thievery is like throughout the world, there's certain things that just seem to be totally universal. And if morality were purely subjective and purely cultural and like based on how you grew up and your genetic line and whatever stuff like that, then you would actually expect some cultures to like develop where thievery is like valued or something. You know what I mean? Obviously those cultures would instantly fizzle out, so I understand that. But and I guess we did have cultures for vast swaths of history that did think murder was good. They would sacrifice, human sacrifice to the gods, lowercase g, gods, and even child sacrifice, which is just horrific. I mean, but that's what you get with subjective morality. If people just get to decide the rules for themselves and there's no standard by which to hold them, then really whatever culture decides is right is right. So that's why it's not like, oh, this is a proof, like this is going to show you, this is going to change your mind and convert you, and suddenly you're going to be down on your knees praying to the Lord and reading your Bible because of this fact. But I'm showing you what you sacrifice by saying that it is subjective. David, I agree with you. It's not purely subjective, but that means that's good. That means you're getting it. Yeah. Morality, not purely subjective. Completely agree. But, and you're right to say purely, because there is we interact with morality through a subjective lens. So there is a subjective element to morality, which is why we can have different ones. But, well, infamous minor, what about this? So, given objective morality, that doesn't mean you don't still have a subjective interaction with that reality. It just means that the actual thing itself exists, that the actual morality, the actual structure is there. But yeah, I mean, you still interact with it subjectively, right? You're right, though, that you can't have absolutely subjective morality and objective morality. Those things cancel each other out. And I don't think that's what David wants to argue for, but I'm not sure if he knows what morals exist independently of human opinion. Slavery, for instance. The fact that slavery is wrong. That man is fundamentally equal. Humans are fundamentally equal to each other on the fact that they're humans. That totally transcends what people would ever have devised by themselves. And clearly, because that's what most of history was. So would you say that slavery doesn't, the wrongness of slavery does not exist independently of human opinion? Yeah. No, you're right, infamous minor. I understand what you're talking about. I just want to draw out some of the nuances, because what the atheist is going to say is, well, obviously morality is subjective because I see it this way and that guy sees it that way. And it's like, okay, but you're not proving anything by saying that. You're just saying that you have a different subjective view of the thing that is real. So I agree with you, infamous minor, just to be clear. No, the wrongness of slavery, not slavery itself. The fact that slavery is wrong is obviously separate from human opinion, because the human opinion for thousands and thousands of years was that slavery is right. It's necessary. It's good. And so if you're saying that it is purely confined to the realm of human opinion, then at those times, slavery actually was good. That's what I'm saying, infamous minor. Yeah, but evolved into what? And yes, it was. Slavery being wrong was handed to us by God. There's absolutely no ground. I've never heard of any argument that slavery was ended by anybody other than the Christian abolitionists, who their primary argument, Genesis 1, imago Dei, man is created in the image of God. That is why we believe slavery to be wrong. All men are created equal. You believe this fundamentally, and you're, I would say cursed, but you might say lucky to live in a world where you just take that for granted, but you don't remember where that came from. There is absolutely no intuitive reason that humans are equal. That doesn't even look like the case. But God revealed to us that that is the case, and then that moved people in their hearts, and then they outlawed slavery. Yeah, infamous minor. I've actually been begging people to hop in this Discord. It's way easier to have this chat. No. I want a VC. I do want a VC. That's been up to everyone else. I forgot to ask you specifically, but the other people are either working or they can't right now. So yeah, I just reposted that. Oh wait, that's the YouTube. Sorry. Let me post the Discord. Sorry, wrong link. Wrong link. There you go. Would love to see you hop in there. That'd be awesome. Let's go to. Oh no! I need to stop opening random shit. Close that. Close that. Yeah, welcome, brother, welcome. Forget this. Ignore that. Go ahead and join that. Okay, yeah, or the hot seat. There you are, brother. Welcome, howdy. Let me turn on my camera, and you can if you want, but there's no pressure, certainly.
Oh, I don't have one.
Cool. Let's do.
Tell me if I'm too loud for the stream, or if I'm over talking you or anything.
No, you're chilling, man. You're sounding good right now. Good right now. I just gotta fix a few settings on my end. Welcome, Sean. Welcome back.
Are we focusing on the transcendental argument, or are we just?
We can take it where I think you have the. I would say you have the priority here because you actually wanted to join the Discord, so I appreciate that. So wherever you want to take this, you go for it.
I mean, I used to debate theology professionally for a while, so I mean, it's been a while since I've done this.
That's freaking awesome, bro. What was the context of that?
So when I was, I'm Irish, so
cool.
Very big Catholic population. I went to a Catholic school.
Oh yeah.
I read a good portion of the New Testament, never quite the Old, but I got into that later on in life.
Okay, cool.
Because I wouldn't imagine a lot of people would want to teach you the Old Testament if you were 5.
You say, wait, sorry, a lot of people wouldn't want to get into the Old Testament, is that what you said?
If you were young, yeah, consider, beyond the Genesis accounts and stuff like that. So, I mean, mainly taught the New Testament, one thing I do want to establish here for the record to be as objective as possible.
Yep.
One thing that I absolutely hate in terms of atheist arguments is one particular thing when God says, or not God says, when Jesus says, "Why have you forsaken me, God?" And they use that as some sort of otherment, and two, that he's condemning himself despite trusting himself. First of all, that's a song. It's a song of the time. He's literally just quoting it.
Exactly. It is so important that it is a quote of a psalm. It's not like Jesus was like, oh shit, I messed up. Like, it's not like that. It is literally calling back to this human lament, like something that is human but also synthesized within the other psalms and obviously within the whole gospel story of this is Jesus Christ was fully human and fully divine. So he has this moment that we all have of, where are you? But of course, the end of the story is glorification, risen from the dead, and then the end of the song.
He's talking about the beginning of the song, right? It wouldn't make sense to quote some middle of the song or the end of the song because this is the beginning of Jesus's transformation into Lord, right? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Now, I would say maybe they should have quoted the end of the song when he was getting the spikes set in, just to bring home that message. It's not like the accounts of Jesus's death haven't been changed over time. But especially in the King James. But if we are to get into something, that's the first thing I want to establish there, is that I'm definitely not going to be, scrutinizing the Bible's overall connection to the story it's trying to present, right? It's very clearly trying to present some sort of ascension from first Adam, right? It's trying to ascend. It's trying to give Jesus the opposite of the fall. Right, the ascension of man.
Yep.
So that first thing is I'm trying to establish that I do know the stories and the Gospels.
Good. That's nice.
But the other thing I want to say is I'm personally not of the belief that it needs to go as far as the Bible.
Okay, explain that. Yeah.
So any argument will presuppose a God, and I'm not going to say that he has to be omnipotent or omnipresent in the terms of like infinite power or beyond infinite power or doing contradictions, right? It clearly means all power, right? And all that is available, right? He can't not be himself, for instance.
Yeah, we went painstakingly through Aquinas 2 days ago and determined that. I mean, that was tough with the chat, but we did it. But yes, we're all on that page. We all know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously can God lift the rock so hard?
Exactly.
I mean, the answer, like, if we're going classical theology, the answer is yes. But if we're being honest with ourselves, it's all power, and the answer is no.
Well, I think Aquinas.
So
I mean, I don't know how classical you're talking about. Aquinas would absolutely say no.
before
It can't.
Aquinas,
What's that? Before Aquinas. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep. Gotcha.
So the answer would have been yes, because to say anything else would have been contradictory to his character. But
yeah, one way I was thinking about that is like it's almost like because we were trying to explain it to someone, I can't remember who it exactly was in the chat, and maybe they're here now, but we were trying to explain, and he was like, "Well, but God can do anything if He's omnipotent. It means He can do it. That just means He can do it." But it's like, okay, but you could think about it this way: if He say He can do it, if it's a contradiction in terms, if it's self-contradictory, the very instant that He did it, it would be canceled out by the other side of His omnipotence. The fact that He can do anything. Like, so the square circle, it's like the act of creating it cancels it out too. That's another way of looking at it, where you still kind of get this sense that God can obviously do anything, but some things are just not like instantiable. Does that make any sense?
Also, yeah, no, I mean, also the square circle thing is an interesting proposition because it's better than the rock. Because the rock implies time, so the minute that he creates the rock, it would be too heavy that he couldn't lift, and then he would try and lift it, and then it would no longer be heavier than he could lift. So,
Right. Yeah,
the square circle is an instance of a true contradiction.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily know the argument to say in either case it's a true contradiction. But I think we should finally get into what I mean by I don't think we need the Bible to actually discuss the God thing. Is I don't think God can exist. I don't think that there is any sort of sentience inhabited by any one perfect being or two all necessary being. So if you, like, for instance, if you take all matter, all space, all time, and you just can everything that exists and can put it back to where it was before the Big Bang, which I want to stress I don't think is the beginning of the universe.
Gotcha.
That you would get God. Right, or any conceivable matter, any conceivable idea that you would compress and you'd get God, because that just doesn't make sense to me personally.
Okay, let's see. So matter, I get where you're coming from, definitely. I mean, I think, yeah, it's not intuitive, or that actually seems wrong to me, that if you just compressed all the matter and energy and sort of physical things back together, then you would just get God.
Well, I'd argue you'd get the Son in biblical terms, because he is God made flesh, so he is God in matter. He is not the Spirit.
So maybe you'd get one part, maybe you'd get one sort of like, I don't know, minor God, because obviously the Son would be nothing without the Father. So when we're talking about
I'm not saying that the Father wouldn't be there, for instance. It would be that the Son would be true. He would be existent, and then Father, and then Spirit would be there already. Like, you'd get him. But he's obviously been made whole in God right now. In the story.
So are you also saying that if you traced the causality back, or like you said, like compressed all the transcendentals back to their sort of grounding or where they arise from or whatever it is?
Whatever beginning you think that there might be, I don't necessarily think that there would be a beginning. That you would get, for instance, God saying, "Let there be light," or God being anything. I don't think that that's a necessary intuition from the beginning of the universe, if there truly was one. And two, I don't think that if we did have a perfect being, there'd be any want for him to make anything. That's the other prong of that argument. I don't think even if it was a sentient, perfect human being, or not human being, but
perfect being. Okay, so you're gonna have to break that down, because first of all, well, I'm curious about how you have knowledge about what an omniscient perfect being would do. And so you're gonna need to break that apart for me and tell me where you're coming to this conclusion that a perfect sentient being would not want to create anything. I'm curious about that.
Well, so I specifically said I don't think he would do anything. That's what I said. So So the idea that things are here is I would argue as objective as things get, without literally identifying yourself as existent.
Sure.
The objectiveness of the existent world. Yeah. Unless we're getting into like presuppositional terms.
I mean, I'll grant you that. I think there are things that are basically just I think some of the transcendentals, like, or even just the laws of logic, are basically as objective as anything that you can touch or see or feel, like the law of identity. That
the laws of logic are pretty much as close as you can get.
A thing equals itself, right? P equals P is about as objective and sort of fundamental as I can imagine. So that's something beyond that, whatever the objective like table that I'm sitting at, that isn't as clear that like like it's obviously not matter. It's not like some sort of substance, the law of logic, but it does exist. It is true. So anyway,
well,
so
I don't know if it necessarily exists in and of itself. I think it exists as a property of the existent experience. So like you exist.
I would agree with that.
The first sentence is you, so that needs to be presupposed, and then exist needs to presuppose the other two laws of logic.
Gotcha. Yeah, there are definitely, you have to work with certain axioms, presuppositions. You just have to. Yeah.
And so what I think is, if we go to the natural conclusion of this, is that you can prove that you exist, you can't prove that I exist.
Right.
And then beyond that, we're trying to prove that God exists. But I don't see how we're getting to this sort of omniscient truth that people claim to have, that he existed, or currently exists.
Yeah, so I don't know how I know how fundamentalists frame it. Then it certainly is like that. And I'm guessing there's some construction going on, so I might have to close my window in a second.
I can barely hear it.
Oh, you can't hear it? Okay, cool. So, okay, so the claim that I'm making is not necessarily like I'm going to be able to prove to God to you in the way that I'm going to be able to prove the rate of gravity on the Earth of 9.8.
You just think it's reasonable?
Yeah, given the evidence and some of the arguments, but mostly the evidence, to be clear and blunt, one of the pieces of evidence is my own personal experience, what I perceive to be like the revelation of God himself.
Oh fuck! I guess I'm gonna have to convert.
Exactly. No. But so I'm not gonna rely on that. I'm just laying that on the table, so know that is one of the things that will probably be like, that's important, right? That's gonna basically be the defining thing between anyone.
The cornerstone.
I've never heard of anybody just sitting down and thinking about the ontological argument and being like, oh yeah, now I'm converted. Right. It's as simple as that, right? So there is usually an experiential proof that is needed, or evidence that's needed. But yeah, to me, it's like all the other stuff, the cosmological argument, the fine tuning, the tag, all that stuff. It's evidence which points to usually a couple options, and then you just like, it's either like, for instance, fine tuning, it's like, okay, there's either infinite multiverses or an infinite expanse of time, or there's some sort of creator or some sort of beginning of time with a creator that like finely tuned, given the name of the argument, the universe to be. So it's like when I do the next logical step, okay, which one am I going to infer from the evidence? Am I going to infer that there is a possible real infinite amount of time? And so the main issue I've had because unless you can think of another like explanation for the fine-tuning argument, which I'd be happy to entertain and listen to, the ones that involve real sets of infinite things just sort of fall apart to me, because infinity seems to me to be totally abstract, given the paradoxes, the Hilbert Hotel, which we could go over, which we have on the channel, and all these different paradoxes. It seems like only something which is abstract is going to be allowed to be infinite. So once you're saying there is a material infinity that is necessary for us to exist here, to me that it's not like, oh, that's impossible. That's so much more ludicrous than God. But it is more ludicrous than an abstract infinity which instantiates a finite material reality. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, so I'm a big proponent personally of no true infinity other than the inference of an infinite regress, right? Because by what I say by inference is that we can't prove there is not, right? Like that's more what I mean.
Sure.
So like obviously if we just discovered tomorrow the universe began at the Big Bang, done, there was nothing before that, whatever implication that has, then I believe there would be no true infinities, right? I don't think that there are true infinities. I don't think that there are there are people that are like infinity and they have an idea of what that is, but it can't encapsulate what it is. It'd be like looking at an eldritch horror, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that anything is infinite or anything could be infinite, other than maybe if just no breakdown of time ever happened and we say right now, here and now, time will always go on. And that's a type of infinity. It's potential infinity.
Why can you infer a sort of infinite regress and not sort of a self-sustained, like why can't you infer another type of infinity, like one that's even more abstract than that? What's that?
Because we know that cause and effect exists.
Yeah.
If we knew that God existed like 5 minutes ago, and then we were like, okay, I infer that this omnipotent, omnipresent, all like seemingly powerful being existed way more than 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
That would be reasonable,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would
yeah.
say to you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But now that we see that cause and effect always happens,
Yeah, yeah.
I would think it would be reasonable to assume that there is an infinite regress, except the fact that we can't investigate causation past the Planck time. And
Okay.
that's where I'm like, we don't know if cause and effect has any. First of all, we don't know if it has any cause, which is the kind of
Yeah.
thing there. Like, does it affect anything?
Yeah, so once we
and
get down to the
if
Planck,
not,
yeah.
did it exist?
Once we get down to the Planck length level, I'm a little beyond my pay grade in terms of like physics and stuff like that. So I'm not. If you have knowledge about that, that'd be interesting to learn
Basically,
about.
all laws of physics break down, and that's why we can't track anything back there. There's like
Right.
no way to like investigate. Like radiation didn't exist yet because it just
Right.
didn't have. There was no
laws
nuclei.
Yeah.
Yeah, like nothing. There's nothing that exists today that existed then.
So
that we
how
can
did these laws
investigate.
of physics become instantiated?
Well, so for instance, right? Let's say that I have a piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
At one point, that was a tree, and
Yep.
you couldn't write on the tree with a pencil.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So only when the paper existed were you able to write on it with a pencil.
Yep.
And so it's exactly like that. So we
But
live
who
our lives
planted the
by
tree?
writing on paper.
How did the tree get there?
Well, I mean, it's an analogy of causation. You'd be able to do that with any
But
analogy I give you.
this is what I'm doing. That's exactly what I'm doing. So there is always a cause and effect, right? So if there's an infinite,
Unless there's nothing to cause and effect because there's only one thing. If there's only one unit,
yeah,
then
but if there's
no
only
addition
one,
of anything.
if there's only one thing that has a personality, then it can actually cause something. It can decide to
A
change
personality
its
isn't well, that's the thing, is that I don't think a perfect thing would feel the need to do that because it is perfect. It doesn't need to do that.
No,
if
but
it's
it
not
might just-
necessary, it's minimal.
mind. But it might have the perfection of like childlike wonder and exploration. It might have certain
But is
perfections
that perfection? Because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, is that like, what do you view as perfection? And it's kind of like saying, how do you grasp infinity? Right? Perfection, infinity, these things are like incomprehensible to the human mind. Like the randomness of like 3 days later even is like incomprehensible to the human mind given all factors.
Okay, I understand.
And so
that.
I don't think you'd be able to tell me what a perfect being would be able to do beyond what is necessary to self-sustain.
Which is
And so if
ironic.
you have
Sorry, go ahead.
and no problem. If you have a perfect being, I think that all that means is that you are sustained and existent, and that's all that means.
Okay, so I mean,
Because if you
sustained
need
and
nothing
existent
outside
is still totally consistent with how I view God. So I don't disagree with you on that in any sense. But I don't.
Well, that's an
it's
aspect of how you view God. It's not the entirety. 'cause he
Exactly, it's
created
not the
something.
entirety, right? But so I don't understand how then you say I can't. I mean, and you rightly say I can't possibly sort of like fathom infinity or God's true nature or something like that. So whatever this potential hypothetical God would be.
But I can.
But you can somehow. You can say that he wouldn't want to create stuff. He wouldn't want to do certain things. So where are you getting? Where are you drawing that inspiration from? Where's that intuition coming from that he wouldn't want to?
So, let's say you have being A, right?
Yep.
And being A has no negative properties, which I imagine you would agree with
Yes.
in terms of God, but
I
beyond
agree.
like the
Yep.
Bible saying that he created sin and whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I wouldn't even
the-
say he. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's go.
I think the creation of sin could be used for greater goods and stuff like that in terms
Right.
of like
Right.
yeah,
There's
so,
sort of theodicies and stuff, but that's a whole other story. So
Yeah.
keep going with your. Keep going with your.
So he has no negative qualities, right?
Right.
Then he creates these the world and the beings that he has, like the humans and stuff, right? And if he can create any greater good outside of himself, would that necessarily make him not perfect? Because that would also be achieved within his being. If that's achieved within his being, then he wouldn't need to do any of that.
True, but it's like it's a question of like why. So does God need to do things? So like maybe did he need to create the universe? Perhaps not. I don't know if I mean, I have to think about this because I haven't thought about it in this formulation, but I don't know if I'm married
clarify,
to the.
I don't think God wants anything. That's what I view as a perfect being.
I don't think he
isn't
wants
necessarily
for anything.
anything.
Yeah.
He wants or needs anything? Is that what you're saying?
No, I said I don't think he wants for anything. Like he does have. He's completely full, right? He's totally positive being. He's
But
not
right, like he's like
lacking.
a full hungry,
Yeah,
not hungry person. Yeah, but
yeah,
still
right.
like food.
But I don't see why that means why he wouldn't also, being a full being, want to create other beings who perhaps, and obviously he can't create another full one because he already contains everything, but why he wouldn't want to create other ones that he genuinely loves, cares about, and that also might genuinely love and care about him too. And then if you're going to create anything at all, and you're a good God, a loving God, well, you're not going to create a slave, really. I don't think. You're not going to create someone that you tie to a radiator and make ontologically impossible for them to do things that should be within their sort of grasp.
You tell that to Archangel Mike.
That's what I'm... Oh, okay. So maybe he would make some... the way I would look at some of the angels, I'm not...
Lucifer definitely isn't like that, but unless you take into account the argument for free will of... would you say that he's all-knowing?
That Lucifer's all-knowing?
Well, he knows a lot, but no, God.
Oh, yeah, God is all-knowing. Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Right, and so I'm assuming you're familiar with the argument for free will, where if he knows everything, then it has to be through the fact that he knows the causes, he knows the effects that are going to happen after he makes these decisions.
Yep.
And that means that you can't do anything outside of his purview, which means you don't have any free will.
No, false. Just because you can't do anything outside of his purview does not mean you don't have free will. Like, the way that I would frame that is that, and I've drawn it on paint before, and I'd love to do it again because it's one of my favorites.
Okay. I know the argument for this is that, like, you basically say that, like, oh, well, if you do a series of random events and then I describe said random events, that doesn't make it not for free.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that you chose what I'm going to do. So if this is the whole of reality, and I'm sitting right here, and I can go left or right, and say, oh, I decided to go left this time. Maybe I'll go right this time. Maybe I'll go left this time. And God is the substance that exists all outside of our material reality, everywhere around it, totally filling it up. Just because he can look in at any moment.
But that's not what's happening.
But that is what's happening.
Well, no, because he knew things before they happened, not at any moment. He exists beyond time.
Well, he's yeah, that's why I agree. He's just beyond time. He's all of this.
Oh, you're saying the circle is the time. Okay.
The circle is time. The circle is all of like say
the circle
realities,
is time and the dots are like
subservient, below God, or like material reality, or just the universe, if you want to call it that. And maybe this is the timeline or something, and this is just all the universe and whatever. But yeah, it doesn't seem obvious to me that because me as a separate entity making free will choices can go from here to here to here to here, and I totally could have gone here to here to here,
well, but
I just happened not
there?
to.
That's the thing. But could you have gone there? That's
yeah, absolutely.
Because
but then
you didn't.
But if I did, then God would just know that I was here and not here.
But that's, I'm not saying that he wouldn't have known that, but if you did go there, that's where you always would have went. Like, oh, I should probably say I'm a determinist personally.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, I'm a determinist personally.
Yeah.
I don't think that there are any things. The only things you can determine as free will is seeming randomness, and the only example of this in that like kind of goes against this in recent like quantum mechanics is like obviously there's the famous double slit experiment, right?
Yep, love that. Yeah.
But that doesn't work how people think it works.
Yeah. Okay, how do you... what's the distinction?
So the distinction is it's not about we observe something like, oh shit, the atom knows we're looking at it, look away, right?
Right.
It's the way it works is that we have to do certain things to look at it in certain ways. Like let's say I needed to use a pencil to draw it. But when I draw it, the lead chemically reacts with it in a certain way to make it do one thing. And then to like look at it in another way, I have to use a rubber. And if I use that, then it's probably not an eraser.
Yeah, then, I got you. I was able to fill it in. But yeah. I got you.
An eraser, and then it will react in a different way. It's about the way it reacts to the types of investigation that we have to use with the mechanics we have, like with the technology we use. That's how it works. It's not that it's like random or it's like because of our observation.
Sure.
It's literally just because we can't look at it with the human eye.
Yeah, okay, I understand. No, I understand that, but I'm saying, so, given that you're a determinist, there's absolutely no way you're going to see in what sense we have free will, but on the intuitive, pragmatic level, how do you explain the overwhelming feeling of free will? Like the absolute undeniable fact that you genuinely wake up in the morning, and unless you're super in the weeds, you never think that your choice of like t-shirt to wear, is it going to be the blue one or the red one, is deterministic. You choose. What do I feel like?
It does nothing to evolution.
What's that?
It feels good and it does nothing to evolution.
it feels good
It
and it
feels
does
good
nothing.
to have said that I could have made that other choice as like excuses in conversations and stuff, and only benefits you in terms of evolution. There's no
Okay.
reason
How
for it
does
to be
it
bred
benefit
out.
me in terms of evolution to have an untrue view of reality?
Oh, like loads of like for instance, like have you ever met a person that has to take certain antidepressants?
Yes.
They don't necessarily have a good like an objective view of reality, but it's good, right? For instance, if we
It's
want to go to the
arguable.
Bible,
Yeah. But yeah.
well, like obviously, I think we would both agree, no matter how we view antidepressants, there are certain medications that people
That
need.
people should take that they do need. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would definitely alter their view of reality
He,
in order to make it more bearable for
well,
them.
actually, I would only argue that it would alter the only extent to which taking medications like antidepressants would be good is if it altered their view of reality towards the objective truth. So if you're taking a bunch of antidepressants to alter your reality towards something other than real, actual truth, then no, that's bad.
Right, but I don't think that's true, right? Because for instance, if you have like a person that's in a pure depressing situation,
Yep.
and an antidepressant leads you straight to the truth of the situation, I think you might just kill yourself, right? But like
Yeah.
if you're talking about what antidepressants actually do,
Uh-huh.
they literally just make you happy. They
Right.
actually just change your dopamine levels to make you happy.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't actually give you a closer view of reality. It might give you, in your view, a closer relation to what God wants you to experience,
Right.
but I don't
Right.
think it gives you a closer example of reality.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm super. I'd be one of the more conservative people you talk to in terms of who should be recommended or receive sort of antidepressants and things like that.
I could
think
agree with that to a certain yeah, I can agree
I
with that
think
to a
there's going
certain
to be a
extent, yeah.
really narrow range of people where that is at all beneficial. Maybe on the short term, like the shortest term, like the
I mean,
4
even if you wanna
hours
just
that you're
use food.
taking your first dose or something. But then on the long term, the term of your whole life, and then being on these drugs your whole life, building up tolerances, taking more and more and more. Oh, this one doesn't work anymore. Let's try a different one. I think for the vast majority of people, that simply is destructive. But maybe maybe we're getting off topic here. I don't know. But
Well,
respond to that
think
if you want.
I
Yeah.
think I think the best. So what I assume you're somewhat conservative, and what
Sure.
I don't care because I'm not American.
Yeah, I got you,
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But the more apt comparison is coffee.
Coffee.
Coffee
Okay. Sure.
makes you feel and be more productive and be good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Tell me
right?
about it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's a drug, right? It's
Yeah.
a drug. It has
Yeah.
specific chemicals in it,
Yep.
placed in your brain a certain way to let happy chemicals in and bad chemicals out, because
For
it
sure.
takes the space of the bad chemicals,
Totally.
right?
Totally.
And so that's a type of medication
Yep.
that makes people better. And I don't think you would say that it strays them from God. I think it would actually a lot of the time, I think you would, get people up for church and stuff, right?
Sure.
And so,
Sure.
and so I think personally that if we have that kind of chemical like persuasion to get towards a certain situation, I think that necessarily you would have situations where you as a person
Yeah.
need this thing,
Yep.
would always have taken this thing,
Yeah.
and I don't think you could have done otherwise, because it's like, one, I don't think you could demonstrate that there's another like aspect of this universe
Okay.
to like show that you could do it.
Yeah.
And two, I don't think that there is reason outside of demonstration, even pure intuition, to assume that evolution wise there is a benefit to realizing that you have no free will.
Okay.
But I do think that there is one to realizing you do.
I'm willing to concede that. Okay, I see where you're coming from on that. Now, I want to do one more. I want to make one more comment on this, like in a very related note, and then I want to bring up one corollary of this belief and see how you incorporate that. And that's really important. Okay, so I will concede and agree with you that certainly there is a element of determinism in life. I mean, obviously, like I could never choose to be a black man or something like that, like a Nigerian guy, right?
I think that's more of a limitation than a determination, but sure.
Okay, sure, fine, okay. So I could never, or even from a sort of deterministic,
You could never be gay.
I could never be gay, considering I'm not gay, or like I could never not love my mother, considering the way she treated me as a good person in my childhood, and things like that. There's some things that are just like pretty much determined. But are you saying that there is nothing which is freely chosen? Is that also a part of this?
Well, no, actually, I think everything is freely chosen. I just don't think you can make other choices.
Okay, I mean, then we kind of agree, honestly. In a weird way, we agree. I think if you want to frame it that way, like that there are genuine free choices happening, and you could not have chosen a different way, I'm not sure how that conflicts with the God of the Bible per se, or free will.
When we say free choices, for instance, right?
Yeah.
What do we mean? I just mean that you made them of your own volition, but I don't think your volition could have been different.
I see. Okay. I mean, yeah, I guess I'm willing to concede that for now.
Like, we still lock up people who murder people even though they couldn't have done anything different, which is usually the response, right? Like, why would you blame anyone for that, right?
That's sort of the corollary or the outcome of this I'm going to bring up to you.
Oh, that was it? Okay.
I'm curious about this because this is important. Even though, because remember that your framework here, which I'm not sure you've totally proven, but it has a powerful argument, is that there is no possible way to have chosen anything else. There's this sort of like ultimate determinism. So what do we do with the Hitlers of the world, the Stalins, the serial killers, the people? Did they do anything wrong in your view?
Well, yeah, you can make free choices you can make a choice that is bad in a deterministic universe, right? It's separate from the determinism.
So you can make, but it's not your fault though. It's like the universe's fault.
No, it is your fault because you would have always done it. It's not someone else's fault.
This is such an interesting view. This just sounds like free will to me. I don't know how this is different from free will.
So it's because you can combine it with morality. Like, that's the thing. And I'm also I'm a big proponent of subjective morality, right? Obviously, I believe that there aren't, like, if all minds were removed, right? Unless you want to hear more about the other thing, but if all minds were removed, right, from the world right now, right, and we say the animals are amoral, right?
Yeah, sure.
Morality ceases to exist, at least if you don't consider God, right? Because obviously I know you're going to be like, oh, God exists, so it does, right?
Right, obviously my worldview is that it still does, but I want to hear the end of this because I think I have an argument, but keep going, yeah.
Right, if all minds cease to exist...
Yeah.
Oh, wait, 1 second.
Sure. Okay, let's read some comments while we're waiting here. Yeah, Sean, I'm going to agree with you here in the Discord chat that morality does still exist, even without people. And Sean, by the way, feel free to hop in verbally. I didn't mean to exclude you from our conversation, Sean. Okay, yeah, so keep going. So you're saying if all minds were just deleted from the world, erased, they just left tomorrow, then there would be zero morality. There would be no morality.
Well, so a lot of people conflate this with there'd be no moral effect, right? The same thing that I was saying before the Planck time before, right? There might still be cause and effect, but it has nothing to act on, right?
Okay, sure.
And so, like, if there's no moral actions, there's no morality, which isn't necessarily a follow-up from that, right?
Okay, fair enough.
You still say that there is morality, there's just nothing for it to act on, there's no agents, right?
Okay, I mean, again, I might even agree with you, but you're saying there would still be morality, but because there's no agents... There's no observable.
No, I'm saying that might be your response to me saying this. I'm not saying that I believe that. I think that there is no evidence that if all minds were removed from the world, that there would still be morality. So I think morality is innately tied to agents in a way that no one can actually state whether morality is objective or subjective. There's literally no way to prove it beyond presupposition.
Okay, fair enough. I'll go with you with that. I'll concede that for right now, but I want to ask, instead of all minds being removed from the earth, what if all minds were made to believe that slavery is acceptable, is morally good, is
so
correct?
What if we time traveled 3,000 years ago?
Right, you don't even have to be that crazy. Yeah, literally, if you just look back, 500, 800, 10,000 years ago, what does that say about slavery at that time? Was it morally proper because morality is just defined by what the minds whatever.
Well, it all depends on the thriving of the societies, right? Like, that's what we really base morality on,
okay,
right?
the Roman Empire thrived about as well as any society
the Roman
does.
Empire thrived, but the people of the Roman Empire didn't necessarily thrive. That's what I mean. I'm talking about people, I'm not talking about institutions, right? Okay. If people thrive, that means they have a good standard of living, they have a good means of themselves, and they have a good, way to survive without, benefiting from others unfairly, right?
Okay.
And the reason
sure.
I say that without any moral standing is because that generally leads to a better society.
And I
right?
agree with you.
Obviously, I don't steal with you. You don't steal from you. You don't steal from me. Better society than if we had the opposite, right?
Of course. Yeah. A little bit of Hammurabi code in the morning. I get you.
Yeah. So obviously these produce better societies, which I think is where we base our morality, right? And obviously if there's no societies, then there is no morality.
So it's really what's best for society defines morality.
What's best for society defines morality is, roughly what I'd say. And if you were to say, like, let's say respond with, okay, what if killing 100,000 people was best for society? I'd say that
or even neutral to society. Like you kill all the people that
neutral?
can't reproduce or something.
I mean, I don't think that that's neutral, first of all.
Okay, first of all, I agree. I'm just trying to...
I don't think that those type of moral situations exist. I don't think morally neutral things on such a large scale that would be considered immoral or moral exist.
Yeah, right? I'm willing to agree
because
with you
they have to have some sort of effect.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. I do.
And actually, I think I would go as far as to say I don't think if we take the... I'm going to sound a little like I'm 16 here, but I don't think if we take the butterfly effect into account, that any neutral moral stance exists. I think they're all morally considerable. It's just that we lack the perspective. It's the same as the randomness in determinism, right? There's so many factors that we cannot actually determine what is moral.
What is determined
10 years down the line.
Yep. I mean, I'm tempted. I do agree with you on that. I absolutely do. Like from a human perspective, no way I'm going to be able to determine exactly what perfect morality is or what the determined path of life is or anything like that. I totally agree with you on that.
So Sean is saying what is moral now is moral tomorrow. Then I don't know how you explained slavery 3,000 years ago, but
no, Sean would say it was immoral back then. That's what he would say.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect of that, because we know how the society ended up.
Well, Sean's gonna say absolutely, objectively, it was immoral back then. Not because we know now, not because we know better, not because we tried something else and it turned out that it was better this other way. Like, by God, and I'm just telling you, this is the other. And I obviously agree with Sean, but I do want to take your perspective here. I do want to take your perspective here. So I'm trying to argue within that framework.
I'd argue that it was wrong back then. It was very obvious it was bad for society. That's why I would argue that it was wrong back then too. Things that are obviously bad for society are pretty much always wrong unless you just have no cognitive ability to understand those things.
And
then
by
it's
society,
like neutral.
Yeah, right. And society, you don't mean the
close,
prevailing power that be. You mean all the individual units of people.
Yeah, I mean the pockets of these places, right? Because
including the slaves, obviously.
Yeah, I mean the pockets of these places, right? Like, obviously, I'm not calling the world a society. I'm talking about, like, how even towns are societies, right? Like, at what point, what does it matter, right?
Yep.
But, like, you know, obviously, if you could make a decision...
I'm sorry, did you cut out, or was that the...
No, my bad.
No, you're good. You're chill.
But yeah, no, like, I think that, I mean, unless you have, like, a refutation... Wait, hold on. We used to believe the Earth was at the center of the universe. Now we believe that it is not. Does that make us strong? So, well, no, because there's a reality. There's a reality to that.
Again, Sean is presuming the reality of morality, so I think we have to sort of make another step in between that to presume any sort of objective morality before we start comparing it to, like, astronomy.
Yeah, so, like, I don't know if you were here for this, Sean. Like, the thing that I view as objective and subjective morality, I don't think you can prove one way or another. I think both work within the framework of our knowledge of reality. So, like, if you want to put things against mine, I don't think objective morality necessarily has any issues. I just think subjective morality doesn't have any issues either. And if you tie objective morality to God, I think God has issues. So objective morality under that doesn't.
Oh, that's interesting. Why would God have issues tying objective morality to... Well, if there is objective morality, it seems to me, and this is, again, we would just have to do the transcendental argument, but it seems to me that would imply a lawgiver, like a holder, a mind that holds the morals or holds the standard or something like that.
Well, so here's the thing is that, like, I'm a big proponent of not necessarily compatibilism between objective and subjective morality, but there are objectively better moves on a chessboard, right?
Then
and
what?
So if we
then what? Like, you mean some moves are better than others? Okay, got you. Sorry.
Some moves are better than others, right? And you can make moves, right?
Yeah.
Not all moves are the best moves, but those fall short of a goal, right?
Okay.
So the goal is to win the game, right? So let's say the closer you are to that goal, the better you're doing morally.
Yeah.
And so if you make a wrong choice morally, you've made a wrong move in the chess game.
Okay, but you're saying there are so in this argument you're presuming that there are objectively morally proper
Yeah, I'm
things
presuming objective stuff here. That's the objective argument for morality. But then obviously we've had the whole conversation about how I view subjective morality, and they both work. That's why they can't really determine it based on anything we know in reality, because all of them correlate. There's an argument for all of them.
So it's your view that subjective morality can sort of in some way create objective morality.
If you use the chess game, yeah, but we have to presume the chess game.
Yeah, it is interesting that like a chess game is such a chess game is something that's so dependent on two minds interacting, which is why it's funny when to use arguments like this where there almost
you can play
is
chess with yourself, right?
Sure, or just one mind, but something to hold the rules of the game in place, right?
Right. I think therefore I am. You're the mind.
Yeah. I think therefore I am is a little bit of a debunked. I don't know. We could get into all that, but
well, I mean, we could just literally infer the law of identity. It's the same presupposition.
Sure. We'll go with it. But okay, interesting. Where do we want to go?
If you want to get onto my favorite argument, the cosmological argument, I'd love to reminisce about that.
Let's do that, because I do like the cosmological argument, and that is...
I think it's the best argument for theology, personally.
Really? Okay. Because a lot of the... well, you're obviously versed in this stuff, and a lot of the less versed people, I don't know if it just goes right over their head, or if they just don't... They miss the implications of it, but... Let's go through it and see where you get tripped up by it or where you agree with it.
Well, it's really just a single proposition. If a perfect being exists, one of his properties is existence. Like,
yeah, there you go. That's pretty good. That's pretty simple.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why there's a whole like line down of it. Like, existence is part of his properties if he's the greatest being. Like,
yeah. So this is also this is basically also the ontological argument. It's very similar, but That's my favorite one, which is if God is defined as that than which nothing greater can be thought or like conceived of or whatever, and you run this process in your head and you get to this thing that than which nothing greater can be thought. But wait, if it existed both in my mind and in reality, then that would be greater, and therefore that would be that which is greater than that which can be thought. Therefore, God exists in reality and in my mind.
And I think that argument falls apart because it all depends on the subjective view of greater. What does greater mean? What does it mean to be a greater thing? Because we really don't invoke a being in that situation. We invoke thing or object.
Well, that's why an important part of the argument is that it doesn't work for things that aren't God. That's why it's troublesome.
So that's what I mean. Like, it might prove that some sort of really powerful state of matter existed at some point, right? But I don't think it proves that one greater means anything that it is a thinking agent. There might be limitations to being a thinking agent that we don't know about, right? Like, let's say we become so advanced down the line that we determine scientifically there's no way to become greater.
Okay.
But there are limitations to what we can do. So as far as I'm aware,
but that would be greater than that which can be thought.
Well, that's the thing, is that like thoughts have advantages over things that materially exist. So you need to both materially exist and be a thought, which can't happen. It is a true contradiction.
You need to both materially exist and be a thought. Well, that's obviously not a contradiction. I can think about my cat, and it also truly exists.
You're not thinking about actually your cat.
I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. The thing that I'm thinking of is not identical with the thing that's in reality in the case of the cat.
Right, because that cat exists. The one in your head does not.
Exactly right. Okay, this is great. I love when Sean does this. He's a big Aquinas guy.
Argument?
Yeah, he's a big Aquinas guy. So he's always going to pull up an article of relative to whatever we were just talking about. So this is Article 1, whether the existence of God is self-evident.
No. Like half the population disagrees, so I don't think it is, but...
Well, yeah, but usually Aquinas is a little bit... Oh, Sean, are you contradicting the ontological argument with this? You're supposed to be working for me, Sean. You bastard. That's all right.
This is why the cosmological argument is better.
Yeah. No, okay, so let's go back to the cosmological argument. So then the Kalam cosmological argument, which is also a fun formulation, I'm interested in what you think about
Which
that.
one?
Well, actually, I'll formulate that. But wait, let's go back to the way you formulated the cosmological argument. If so, say it one more time. Say it exactly how you said it last time, because that was so concise. That was perfect.
I mean, I think it misses some of the real specifics of the actual argument, but I will say it again. The basically, if God is the perfect being, then one of his properties has to be existence.
Gotcha. Yep.
Therefore, he exists.
Yep. Okay, cool. So what is your where does that fall apart from you? Is it the same problem as the ontological argument? Oh, you disagree with if.
Yeah.
So if God is a perfect being, then one of his properties is existence. So you're saying this is just a supposition. This is just a presupposition.
Yeah.
Because of the if.
Yeah, so the proposition specifically is possible worlds. So it uses modality. It uses possible worlds in the arguments. I deny the existence of possible worlds because I'm a determinist.
Right. Oh, you don't even believe in possible worlds.
Only one exists.
That is so trippy to me. So what do you do with these? What do you do with when I think of, well, you know what? I'm feeling healthy. I'm gonna have a salad for lunch today. So there's no possible world in which I could go out and get a slice of pizza.
Well, think about it like this. You just made an absolute statement. I am going to do this, and then you did this.
Yeah.
There's no world in where that didn't happen. Like, that's what you did.
Well, but
you did that.
My understanding of possible worlds is that that doesn't have to do with what actually happens in my world. It's just what you can possibly imagine to be the case.
Well, so it deals with what isn't contradictory, but there are things that are not contradictory that do not exist at all times.
There are things which are not contradictory which do not exist. Yeah, I agree. But
so
for it to be a possible world, all it has to be is non-contradictory. It doesn't have to exist. It doesn't have to be what I'm going to do.
But yeah, I deny that. I don't think that that's true.
Well, that's going to be hard to talk about then, because
you
want to define. I mean, where are you pulling this from? I mean, this is just my sort of relative layman's understanding of the purest definition of possibility. It's just that it's non-contradictory. So you believe there's nothing that's non-contradictory, or I don't understand.
Yeah, because otherwise it would contradict with reality.
So the fact that in my imagination I'm eating a delicious pepperoni slice of pizza.
That doesn't contradict with reality, because people do think of eating pizza.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
Unless you got like a whole fucking pocket dimension in your mind, like, I don't think the possible world actually exists. And I don't think that you could entirely imagine God. So he definitely doesn't exist in your mind, which means he definitely doesn't exist in a possible world.
Yeah, well, the ontological argument, to be fair, also presumes that you cannot imagine God. That's actually a really important part of it, because the usual objection is that so then the greatest possible island exists just because I can think of it in my mind? And then the answer
is because then he would be of a limitation of the island, right? But
exactly.
But the thing with the ontological argument is because we can never comprehend God, he can never fit into the argument.
Well, no, he's the only thing that does fit into the argument, precisely because you can never actually get to the. It's not a concrete thing that you can actually start to think of.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, is that, like, if you think of it, and then there's something greater, and then you think of it, and then there's something greater. It's a God of the gaps analogy. There'll always be a section above your level of thought that is not as great as God, I would imagine, or it would just be better than what you can currently think. And since eventually I would imagine you think the rapture is going to happen and people will all be gone,
sure,
the argument doesn't work, because eventually people are going to stop thinking about how great God is.
Okay, I think I kind of lost you on that last part, on that last jump. So because the rapture is going to happen or whatever, and then everyone will be gone.
Okay, so it's not part of the logical argument. It's more, at a certain point, humans will stop being able to imagine a more powerful God. We are not infinite, right?
Yes, yeah.
So at that point, God will be that thought plus one.
Yes.
But he won't be as powerful as what you would presume God is, because it'll always fall short of that.
Yes, I get you. That plus one, it's more like that thought plus infinity, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's the inference, but we can't actually think of that. So, like, there's no point in the thought experiment at that point. If you're just saying it's what I think infinite, then you can apply it to anything that has any property, and it'll just be, oh, it's not that thing anymore, it's infinity.
Well, that's what one of the funny quirks about the ontological argument is, that when you start to think of the perfect island, then you get to this point where you're like, well, what if the island was, because could grant wishes. And then you go, okay, well, what if the island was personal and could respond to your wishes?
Right, but I'm not saying it's an island anymore. I'm saying it's infinite in power.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. So I don't presume that there is any way to perceive or think of God like that. And that any item you plug into the ontological argument will just become God, because by definition, and then again, it's like, okay, we're presupposing, I guess, the definition. But
I think it leads you to infinity personally. It leads you to an infinitely powerful thing, but I don't think it leads you to an infinitely powerful personal being that interacts with the world.
Okay, but you would concede an infinitely powerful thing given the argument or whatever.
At least an all-powerful thing, something comprised of
right.
like energy, which,
all possible power, all
well,
possible.
I mean, hey, we're living in it. Like, it's kind of here.
Yeah,
I think it would infer the universe personally, because I think that's what exists, and we can kind of quantify. Well, we can't quantify it. We can measure certain amounts of it based on the speed of light. But
yep. Okay, I'm just I'm refreshing myself on the. I asked Grok to. I'll share this. You can probably actually see this on the Discord, to sort of give me a rundown of possible worlds, just so I know we're on the same. What's that?
I don't think I can see it.
Oh, is it on the Discord? Is it? Oh, you know what? It's probably no. It's still the Paint.
I can only see MS Paint. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me change that real quick. So I'm just gonna change. I'm gonna.
The squiggly god analogy.
The squiggly god. Paint is pretty fun actually. I like
the spaghetti monster.
Yeah, that's right. I'm accidentally confirming flying spaghetti monster against all my wishes.
That shit was so fucking stupid.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the dumbest arguments. But it's just like, I can think of something stupid, therefore your thing is stupid. It's like, okay.
It's like Matt Dillahunty's magical fairy pixies. I'm like, okay.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That guy has become such an asshole.
I know, man, I know. I don't know what happened to him.
I used to like his stuff. He used to be so much calmer. And then I guess he met a bunch of Muslim debaters, because god damn, they are really fucking aggressive.
They are extreme. Those are actually in my free time. That's what I watch a lot. Is actually I don't know if you've heard of Sam Shamoon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's got his own I don't necessarily agree with his sort of I want to say posture. He's hyper aggressive, but watching that against using that versus the hyper aggressive Muslim apologists, to me is really satisfying and hilarious, especially because.
Do you want a really funny argument for the Bible in favor of the Quran?
Sure. Yeah, let's hear it.
It's very simple.
Yeah.
What came first, the Bible or the Quran?
The Bible. What
does the Quran say about the word of God being able to be corrupted?
That it's incorruptible, I'm sure.
It's uncorruptible, so the Bible's right.
So the Bible's real. Yeah.
It's literally a New Testament. The Quran is a New Testament. You're like, it can't be corrupted.
Yep.
But the Bible is corrupted for some reason. It
doesn't make any sense. The foundation. Yeah, we're somehow an Abrahamic religion, but the other part, the tradition we come out of, that's totally corrupt. So it's like, what are you saying?
Yeah. I do like a personal response from a Jewish man. He responded to that argument with, "What came first, the Torah or the Bible?" And he fucking crumbled. It was great.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really? He was like, "What does the Bible say about the Torah being able to be corrupted?" And he just goes, "It says it can't." And then he goes, "Oh, well."
Yeah. Wait, so was that supposed to be an own on Christians or on?
So Christians invented the argument for against Islam.
Then
a Jewish man just used it against the Christians to say which came first.
Yeah, but that's only contradictory. I think that's only contradictory for the Muslims. I don't know if that's contradictory for the Christians, for the Torah to be uncorrupted. Well,
so the Bible is. It says the Bible. Well, okay. The Bible says that the Word of God is incorruptible.
Right.
Specifically.
Yeah.
And the Torah at one point was the Word of God.
Yeah. But I don't. But the Bible also confirms the Torah. Like, the Bible doesn't say what the Quran says, which is that, or not even the Quran, really, just the Hadiths, that the Torah is now corrupted. They say the Christian claim is that the New Testament is the fulfillment of the law and the prophets. So it's like a confirmation of the law and the prophets. I don't think, I mean, I know there's fundamentalists and be like, the Jews killed Jesus, Christ killers, or whatever, but the nuanced Christian
to make, yeah.
The nuanced Christian would just say, well, yeah, that's not a contradiction. We also believe the Torah is valid, and that's why it's in our Bible. That's why it literally is our Bible. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, there's always the old adage that, if you ask a Jew, Jesus was a Jewish man, And if you ask a Christian, Jesus was actually the metaphorical son of God, and he actually had 3 metaphorical staves. Like,
right. Yeah.
there's a much more spiritual version of the reading than the Torah.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Okay,
Yeah,
so
we can
this
jump
is.
to
It
another
looks
argument
like
if you
this. It looks like this point is where you're harping. Not all possible worlds are equally accessible from the actual world. Is that something you agree with? Or are you saying they don't even exist? Like the possible worlds, as
There
in.
is no proof that they exist, so I refuse to believe them.
Okay, it's a little unintuitive. I got to be honest with you. But I guess I see what you're coming from.
Because they're saying that they're possible were, like, for instance, like, if it was possible that something existed, it would need to be in some way actionable. It would need to have some potential in reality.
Okay, but the potential
no
is there.
other existence of reality exists.
Okay, but I have the potential to choose a blue or a red shirt. So there's no, but okay, but just say I'm going to choose the. So you just don't even believe in potentiality. You just throw away
I
potentiality.
don't believe in possibility, and I don't believe in potentiality.
This is radical, but I appreciate it. I like that. This is very interesting. Yo, Jonathan.
Oh, is it the chat?
Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat real quick because I haven't looked at it. So let's see. Sometimes people have good insights here. Rarely, but sometimes. No, I'm kidding. You guys are the best. So we create morals that we evolve and learn. So that's yeah. David was gonna generally believe with you. Chess is your favorite game. Great game. Freaking awesome. Just saw Magnus Carlsen on Joe Rogan. Actually a pretty good interview. You know, sometimes Joe Rogan, he's a bit of a dunce. Even in that thing, he was a bit of a dunce. I'm
gonna be so real.
Yeah.
That stuff with what's his name, the actor. That's like
Woody Harrelson.
Weird conspiracy theorist.
Was it Woody Harrelson? I didn't watch that one, but I heard there was some talk about it. Was it Mel Gibson?
No, it's much worse. It's the guy who played in Iron Man 2, the guy who switched out for Rhodey.
Oh, Terrence Howard, I think.
Terrence Howard,
yeah, that was
he is insane.
That was nuts. I was watching that like, oh my god, dude. This is just how like New Age like ruins people's minds, but yeah, Terrence Howard was freaking nuts. The Magnus Carlsen one was good. Joe Rogan spent 30 minutes opining about the anal bead cheating, and Magnus Carlsen in the first 5 minutes was. I don't know if you heard about. Did you hear about that? There was a big.
I see clips of that.
Yeah. And Magnus is like, no, that has like a 0.002% chance of being the case. Actually, the tournament didn't have much security, and you can get like very small earbuds and this and this and this. And Magnus Carlsen basically lays out exactly how this guy cheated in like a practical, real way. And then Joe's response is basically like, so like, how are they buzzing his ass? Like, is it like one buzz stands for C and the other one stands for 3? And Magnus is just like, who am I talking to again? Like, what is going on here?
What is this big bald man talking about?
Yeah, but it was interesting. I mean, I love any sort of long form thing with a freaking certified genius as Magnus Carlsen. I mean, he's so cool.
I just don't like when he takes on people who are pseudoscientists and bigots. Like,
totally.
Instance, Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of that guy's stuff, but I've seen some of his clips here and there. I know the only thing I know him from is anti-abortion arguments.
Oh man, I remember having a few of those back in the day, man.
Yeah, I bet. Not that I really want to take it there, but I'm sure we could have one right now. Okay, why is a human mind and what we can imagine the deciding factor? Okay, this would be
because we're the only minds that can comprehend it.
Again, but that just seems like an axiom that you're presuming, but that's fair.
Well, I'm saying we're the only minds that can comprehend something like God. Obviously, if you're presupposing that God exists, that's you in your mind presupposing that God exists.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying we're on equal footing. It's not like you have some sort of like ontological superiority just for stating that human minds are the only ones that exist. Just like we don't have it for stating like.
No, not the only ones that exist. The only people who can comprehend God, but in your view, it would be other than God. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't rule out intelligent alien life or anything like that, or the fact that like cats. No, I wouldn't rule it out. Would you?
Then like, do they have no? I absolutely believe that alien life exists because of the probability of it.
Yeah, me too.
Not the possibility of it.
Yeah, be careful, brother. I'm gonna catch you one of these days.
I've been debating for years. I have my words down to a fucking T.
Good.
Dude, you know one person I really, really appreciate in debates? Alex O'Connor, man.
Yes,
he
me
reminds
too.
me of myself. I love that guy.
He reminds me of myself. No, I like him too. I actually really do. Respectful and intelligent.
He's better than me.
He's better than
Alex
all of
O'Connor,
us, as far as I know.
He
Yeah.
he's
hit
a
us, Sean.
great redder.
A great what?
You know the word
I thought you
redder?
said a great redditor.
I know, me too, which is probably true, honestly.
Redder.
Retter. No, what's
Here, I'll
that?
spell it.
Enlighten us.
You mean like rhetorically? Like I don't actually know what that word is.
It's a person who does.
Retter. Nice. I bet that does
It's a
mean like
person
someone.
who.
Yeah.
It's a person who writes orations.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Cool.
I don't know
Learn
what that
something
second
new
word is either.
every day. Yeah, you can tell
Like,
it out. He has
he is-
really well formulated. Like when he does those like Oxford debates or whatever it is, you can tell it's like it's just a tight piece of writing, really.
The one with Dinesh was.
I didn't watch that because I get cringed out by Dinesh, and I didn't want to be cringed. I didn't want to see
It's-
someone just absolutely butcher apology like that. But
So I would say watch it for the sole purpose of what not to do.
what not to do? Yeah, I figured.
Alex O'Connor, being the guy he is, was literally like, so you might say this, and then he gave a good refutation to his argument, and then Dinesh was like, well, fuck that.
Well, yeah.
It's all metaphorical, and like I'm just like, okay, what?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
just gave you to it on a fucking silver spoon. Like,
Yeah, literally, he gave him the argument. Yeah, I know. Okay, that might be good to watch as a cautionary
it's funny.
tale.
I enjoyed the whole thing, and I don't like watching cringe, like especially like when people are going to be hyper aggressive and not let the other person talk, which Dinesh was. But this was like every time he said something, the audience was like, "Fuck!" Like,
Did
I
you
was just like, "Damn."
Yeah, that's so awkward. Did you see the Matt Dillahunty thing versus? And this I guess happened like a year ago, but I just saw it versus this other guy who I actually loathe on YouTube called Andrew Wilson. You know that dude?
Let me look up Andrew Wilson.
Dude, he does these.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He does those. He's like sort of like the kingpin or something of those podcasts where they have like 19 OnlyFans girls, like 18-year-olds with their
this
tits
guy.
out. Yeah. And so
Dude,
I guess he's a Christian, although he couldn't act further from it.
he's
honestly.
a Christian in the
Like,
same way that a Jew that believes he was like he's a Christian the same way the Jew beside Jesus was a Christian. Like
Right. Or the same way that like fucking Hitler was a Christian. If you know, it's like well, not literally. Obviously, that's obviously exaggeration, but it's like
Well, actually,
I
we don't
can't
know
think
his,
of a
like-
less Christian way to try to convert like sex workers than just like smoking a cigarette on a Zoom call and yelling at them and calling them sluts. I'm like, this is like the least I don't know, Christ-like representation of how to.
yeah, and here's the
people.
thing is that people don't really fucking believe like people do not believe that
Yeah.
there's like any like validity to like things like
Mm-hmm.
sex work or abortion. Like I think personally the best people that have takes on this are actually comedians, especially with
yeah.
abortion.
Yeah.
I saw one comedian basically go, it's your body, you can do what you want with it. It's, you know, you don't have to be slave to this like moral dilemma, especially if you're not ready for it.
Uh-huh.
And then this other person is like, you're killing a baby. He goes, oh, well, that's true as well. Like,
No,
Yeah,
I wonder if-
Louis C.K. had a great bit about that, where obviously he's a liberal New Yorker, so he's pro-choice himself, but he gets on stage in New York, and he gets up, and he's like, look, I know it's fun to just call the Southerners, they call them all racist, and call just hate them because they don't believe in abortion, but it's like, think about what they actually believe. They think you are killing the babies. There is not, if you don't stand up for killing babies, you're a bad person. So like, it's just
Yeah.
pointing out this, given what they believe, of course they're going to be outspoken about it. They're going to be this and they're going to be that. I thought that was a genius. Louis C.K. is one of the most genius comedians. So of course he comes up with that brilliant sort of
there's,
take, but yeah.
there's one
wait,
game.
wait.
Wait, yeah, sorry,
How's-
Sean. Yeah, you were going to say something, Sean. Go shoot it.
How is this related?
No, to what, to God?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
I think he loves babies.
Yeah, I do think God loves babies. But okay. Actually, this is how I can bring it back into the theological. Well, even yeah, I don't want to really bring it into the political realm. So let's bring it back to the theological realm. Let's talk about. Well, we kind of went over the possible thing. You do not believe in possibility. You don't believe in necessity. Oh, I was going to formulate the Kalam cosmological argument. the way that William Lane Craig formulates it, and I want you to
Oh
tell
God,
me.
not William Lane Craig.
I know. You're gonna have a lot of problems with this. So then it should be easy for you. So where exactly? Just point it out to me so that I don't fall into the mistake of defending
the argument.
something indefensible. I'll lay it out for you. Premise 1: everything that begins to exist has a cause. I mean, I think you would agree with that. Wait, you already said that everything has a cause. Why do you disagree with that?
I said that everything has a cause. I don't think that everything begins to exist.
No. It's not that every. Okay, so then you just disagree with premise 2.
We have no examples of things that came to begin to exist out of no cause.
Yes,
Well,
we do.
I began to exist.
From nothing?
No, from a cause.
Oh wait, say the first example again.
Everything that begins to exist. So just so you're clear, that doesn't even imply that things begin to exist, but everything.
I'm talking about a different cosmological. No,
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So
No,
everything.
I think I agree with premise. Well, I think I agree with premise.
Okay, I'll formulate it again. Just make sure you agree with it. Everything which begins to exist has a cause. Sound good?
So, I mean, I could disagree with it in, like, I'm not going to, but I will lay out the argument of someone who can disagree with it. The main disagreement will be nothing truly begins to exist. Things just change into other things. And it's an ever instance, like, the instances of things are arbitrary. Like, for instance, are you the same person you were 12 years ago? I think intuitively we'd say yes, but I think that biologically and mentally we would say no.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the classic like Greek ship thing, whatever. Like it's
the ship of Theseus.
Exactly.
So like everything that begins to exist has a beginning. I don't think you can actually say when each beginning for anything necessarily is, other than it being arbitrary. For instance, when do you believe in evolution? Please tell me.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Oh, thank fuck.
Yeah.
When did we become humans? I don't think you could ever pinpoint that.
Well,
I don't think we can ever pinpoint when any species becomes something else.
Yeah, but you can there are certain things that just intuitively you can pinpoint as beginning to exist. Like for instance, just like, I mean, I think you can with a human too. When do they have like sort of? Well, again, that is freaking hard.
We're getting back into abortion.
We're accidentally getting back into abortion already. But anyway, so forget a human, but a chair. Okay, at a certain point, as a craftsman,
something you can sit
chair,
on.
Sure, yeah. But just like
as soon as
yeah, go for it.
sorry,
Tom. Go for it.
As soon as the chair gains the ability to have something sit on it,
right,
then it becomes a chair.
Then it begins.
But is it a chair or is it a rock?
Yeah, I mean, let's not like get into, because then we're gonna now get into like how do you define anything, or you know what I mean? But you just give,
so my view is
concede that you know what a chair.
Named.
Concede that you know. Well, will you please concede that you know?
It's the reason I want to concede the point. I'm mainly explaining the argument. It's the reason I don't want to get into it.
Yeah,
so, like,
I got you. So you know when a chair becomes a chair versus when it's a bunch of like planks on the carpenter's table or whatever. I mean that there is a point.
I mean, intuitively, sure. I guess I wouldn't say that objectively or even like.
Okay.
Again, let's not get into that. I'm gonna just give you the point.
Okay, fine. So things that begin to exist have a cause. Now this is where you're really gonna disagree, given the conversation we already had. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause.
There's no proof of it. Premise 2.
I think the
local universe began to exist at some point arbitrarily to our
so let's start there.
Of it.
Okay, let's start there. So the local universe began to exist. What are the possible
It depends
options?
what you mean by universe, I suppose.
By universe, I actually want to mean.
Do you mean cosmos?
No, I actually want to mean space, time, and matter. And if you can think of anything else, maybe the laws, like whatever the transcendentals.
Space, time, matter, logic.
Logic,
I mean,
whatever.
I don't think that there's a beginning for any of those. I don't think that there's ever any proof for the beginning of them.
Okay, so what does that?
Maybe logic.
Can you? Is it fair for you to just stop there, or can we start to prod? Like, what are the possibilities? But you don't believe in possibilities. But
I don't believe in possibilities. But I mean, if you can prove it,
you can't say that you just know that the universe didn't exist because you don't have proof for it. Because you also don't have proof that it did exist. I mean, that it did begin. Sorry.
Well, so if I don't have proof that something began, that doesn't mean I don't have proof that it is.
So you actually do have proof that it did not begin.
Well, no. I'm saying that if I say, so first of all, I don't believe that it did begin. That doesn't mean that I don't have proof.
Right.
That it exists.
Sure. So fundamentally, you just don't believe the second premise, but there's not a real reason to deny. I mean, there's not a fundamental.
Well, there's not a real reason to prove it.
No. I think that's fair. I think other than just your intuition, it's not a proof. Again, yeah, it's not going to be like proving the speed of gravity or whatever. But okay, we're back to Aquinas. We got Aquinas. Whether it is an article.
He has an article on everything.
He has an article for literally everything.
Dude, I didn't know he was around when articles began.
Yeah.
What is this? Oh yeah, okay.
But it would seem that it's not an article of faith, but a demonstrable conclusion that the world began. For everything that's made by it has a beginning of its duration, but it can be proved demonstrably that God is the effective cause of the world. Indeed, this is asserted by the more approved philosophers. Remember, this is the objection. So this is not Aquinas' opinion. This is what he perceives the objection to his opinion being. Therefore, it can be demonstratively proved that the world began. Further, if it is necessary to say that the world was made by God, it must therefore have been made from nothing or from something. But it was not made from something.
So you might want to skip over.
It's a long one. Oh my God, he's got 8 objections. Okay.
Yeah, so in this particular one, he's actually talking about the world as in the time that they were actually discussing whether or not the planet that they live on, because they didn't know that how much was beyond the planet. Okay. Only like the sun that they see, I guess. And the solar system, because astrology or astronomy, goddamn. It's basically just saying, like, was the world made out of nothing, like in Genesis says? Like, was it made out of just God saying, like, he then made the heavens and the earth?
Yeah.
But like he's not talking about the universe. Like that's just not what the argument he's refuting mentions. It's not to do with the cosmos of the universe.
Okay. And actually it looks like Aquinas is going to agree with you that this is literally just we take on the basis of divine revelation, which is just faith, really. That's at least his simple answer here, but
I was always confused by the fact that people were like, "Oh yeah, you need to take everything based on faith," and then like 1 Peter 3:15 exists. But
what is 1 Peter 3:15? Let's go to that.
You must give reason for the. I think there's a lot of different versions, especially in like the different versions of the Bible. But I think the main one is, you must have a reason for the hope you have in your heart.
Yeah, I agree with the way that I would frame that. The way that I would interpret 1 Peter, in that sense, is that there's nothing repugnant to God about reason. Like, and the Catholics love this term, faith and reason, right? They're not mutually exclusive. Like, there can be reasoned arguments for things that you first take on faith, which I think pretty much everybody is going to take religion.
Well, yeah, everyone makes presuppositions. In fact, I'd go a step further and say that people who actually, like the apostles and maybe the later writers actually acknowledged this, and that faith is just an early word for presupposition.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that. Faith has more resonance as a word. Like, it's just a better word than presupposition.
Well, it's revered in society. It's mained with religion. That's the point. And like, I hate when people say that, like, oh, when you take something on faith, you don't need evidence. You've thrown it out the window. And it's like, yeah, that's because that's the only word that actually means near to what it meant in the actual text. It really just means you presuppose something, which I suppose does mean you believe it without evidence, but let's not pretend like we don't. Like the laws of logic are those basic 3. You at least have 3.
Yeah, I mean, you have to concede in order to have any sort of conversation, you have to be able to take certain presuppositions, like the laws of logic. I think you agree with that. So what are your presuppositions regarding sort of the creation of the universe, the fine tuning of the universe? Like, what are you presupposing, or what do you just
into the fine tuning argument? That's fun.
Fine tuning is really fun for me. I like that one, so I'm happy to get into that. Like, how do you respond to the low entropy state at the beginning of the universe? Do you think that the probability of that is just 1 because it happened, or is it actually 1 over 10 to the 10 to the 123rd power?
If we are to engage in possibility here, everything that could have happened had that chance to happen.
Yeah, so that this is your radical claim that there basically is no probability. There's just 1. The probability for everything is 1 because if it happens, it happens. Is that sort of? I don't want to strong.
I don't think that's. Well, so I don't think that's a refutation necessarily to this argument here, because you're basically just saying it's incredibly unlikely.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but every possibility that could have happened back there is incredibly unlikely. Have you ever heard of the puddle analogy?
But some things are less unlikely than others. Like, for instance, that matter would not accrete at all is way more likely.
Know that that's less likely?
Well, just because you need the laws to be exactly what they are, or just the low entropy state itself. If you just want to take that on itself, this is the Penrose.
Right, but how do you know that it's less likely? We don't know the exact properties of that state of the universe. We don't even know if we don't even know if that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, you were gonna say an analogy. What was the analogy you were gonna?
Well, I wasn't gonna say an analogy, but I'm like, we don't even know what could have happened back then, if possible worlds are taken into account, let alone if that isn't the only thing that could have happened. And I don't mean like possibility wise. I mean like physics wise. Like you can't, like we just talked, you can't be a black person. It just can't happen, right? We don't know if that could have been different.
That there's a logical contradiction between, or like a contradiction of terms between, like, I don't know, like between existence and the low entropy state being exactly what it is, something like that. Like like I understand what you're saying.
Technically, all the energy amassed all in today leads to the, like, literally zero. Like, so.
Yeah. This is the number I was talking about, 10 to the 10 to the 123. So if I understand that correctly, that's a 10 with 10 to the 123 zeros
that's like
after
10 duodecillion or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's beyond, whatever it is. I don't.
That's like
so why does he define this as a probability? Again, remembering this isn't a theist or anything like that.
I don't care about who says it. I mean, the person who discovered the Big Bang was a Christian.
Sure, yeah. So he uses the concept of phase space, and I'm not saying Grok knows all the answers, but just so I can get my head around this a little bit in some sort of concise way, you know what I mean?
I do have to go in like 5 minutes.
All good, brother. I've appreciated you joining and having this talk, so I really appreciate you joining.
I'll be back in like a half hour at most.
Great. We'll probably still be here in a half hour. So he uses the concept of phase space, a mathematical framework that represents every possible configuration of the universe's matter and energy. And then this is where you'd have the problem, I'm guessing, where you'd say he can't possibly know this. Every possible configuration has to be one.
Yeah, I don't think he could have known this, especially since it's literally before some scientific breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Although he'd have to know everything. This is like, I don't know what you're quoting, but that's ludicrous. You need to be God to make that equation.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of wondering. Yeah, because this is one that's often quoted for the fine tuning, so it'd be good to.
I guess maybe you're only taking into account all the matter in the world. Like, I mean, I guess if you're taking into account all of the states of matter that we know of, all of the matter, like rounded up, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's what he's doing. I don't think he's making any claim about
space, and then all of the space in what the observable universe is, and just say how many possible, like, how many balls can I fit in the gumball jar, and how many combinations are there? But like, you're leaving out like what did what at what time, when, like some things are just impossible.
I'm guessing based on that I understand this to be a scientific paper, like published in Science Journal or whatever it is, you know, that he's only taking what could be scientifically observed. So he's not saying like before the Big Bang or at the moment when physics was impossible after the Big Bang.
Yeah, nothing before the Big Bang time.
At the earliest point that we can observe, that we can make observations about, these are the possibilities. Do you object to that? Like, is that a possibility that he could at least observe the moment that is observable, right?
Well, so like I think he's confusing possibility with probability, right?
Okay.
He's describing possible states of all the matter in the universe and at every instance in the space of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not taking into account that, like, that's the matter, that's like all outcome. So how do I explain it? Like, what's the probability that you exist?
Like zero, approaching zero, I would say.
Approaching zero, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But you do.
Sure do.
Like,
that's why they call it the miracle of life.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't disagree. I think that the highly improbable things can be called miracles, right? Like if I saw like a fucking, the most famous miracle of all time, a fucking tornado go into a junkyard and make a Boeing 747.
Yep. Or all the monkeys creating the works of Shakespeare or something like that.
That actually can happen.
You think that can happen?
We did it. Yeah, we did
what?
it.
For real? When they do that?
The monkeys.
When they do that, they got a bunch of monkeys into a room, and no, I'm guessing they did it with language learning models or something. What's that?
We're the monkeys.
Oh, we are the monkeys. I understand. I understand. So if the monkeys get intelligence, okay, I get you.
Yeah, I mean, like, substitute intelligence for time. There you go. Like,
yeah, no, I do think with actually infinite time, obviously everything would happen, so that the monkeys would actually, even if they don't have intelligence, would at some point put together all the letters in infinity. But that's why infinity is so absurd. I agree with you that it's not real in any meaningful sense. Except that I would give it to God. But anyway.
Well, I mean, I'd argue that at some point in time they will have done it. It doesn't take infinite time. So whatever point in time they do it, if that fits within the line of the observable universe, then it'll just happen.
I would guess
that
if we presume the observable universe to be like as long, say like the monkeys have to die when the heat death of the universe dies, that it still probably wouldn't happen. I would guess the entire works of Shakespeare to be randomly.
Think of how much evolution happens in that time.
Yeah, but evolution is a lot less. Like evolution is sort of like a slow march that has like logical effects from causes. But there's absolutely no like correlation.
Every single time you type the right word or the right letter.
Then you start speeding it up for sure.
Yeah, if you introduce stuff, it up.
But then you're just introducing a human mind. Then that's essentially no different than a human writing the entire works of Shakespeare using monkeys as typewriters or whatever, using some
no, because the pleasure in and of itself is writing Shakespeare. That's why Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare.
Yeah. The monkeys would never.
And then he got like. But then he got loads of like attention, etc., etc. Obviously, it's a more complicated form of art than like any other animal has ever invented. But like, let's say, certain types of elephants, they can do art.
Yeah.
And when they do, they're actually favored in their.
Of course.
A gaggle of them, but a pack. They're favored in their society.
Yep.
And so, eventually, over time, that'll just happen. Like.
Yep.
We've only been alive for a certain amount of time. If we're talking about this heat death of the universe, like we could start from amoeba again, and it would happen.
Right. Maybe. Yeah. Again, I'll concede that. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure about the math and stuff like that. But
are you aware about the Alexandria's library thing?
No. What's that?
It's literally just a AI base of everything, all written form of text.
Sweet. That sounds awesome.
And I don't mean like we put books into it. I mean it generates.
Oh, it generates every possible
combination of anything written.
Oh, wow. So the novel I'm working on has already been written by this fucking AI?
It literally has already been written. Everything that we've said in this conversation has already been written.
Really? I have not heard of that. And that's true. That's like confirmed. That's like a confirmed thing. Like that 100%.
Obviously, it's still going, but it's been going for literally like 40 years, and it already eclipsed all of the major like works of all books that they could test against it.
Wow.
Like they looked for every single book that they had, and so that's why they called it the
Library
of Alexandria.
Does this challenge your view of possibility in any way, or no? You would just say, so now because this AI has done this, then at least all books are possible, right? Because there's some instantiation of that. Is that what you?
I mean, it will do it, but that's a deterministic statement.
Okay. I mean, but even say after it's been done, like.
What do you mean?
Okay, this line of questioning is going nowhere. I can already feel it, and that's on me. It's not on you. Okay, so what do you have to say about this? What do you have to say about this? The entropy measures disorder and is tied to the number of configurations corresponding to a given state.
See, I fucking knew it. It's just talking about the amount of states that can happen between the amount of particles in the exact same fucking area. Yeah, that like it doesn't take into account time. It doesn't take into account where it was or if it could interact with one particle 5 quintillion miles in the other direction.
Well, why would you presume that? I mean,
well, because it sounds like it's taking into account only it sounds like it would have to take into account only particles that can interact with any individual particle, and then so on. Even if you want to increase that at the speed of light, which chemical reactions do take place at most, which is me granting something, then it would still have to create this massive ball of fucking energy, because that's how like gravity works. Right?
Yeah.
But it's like saying, what if we had like this ball, like it like think of a gumball machine, right? And all the gumballs are atoms. It's saying that one gumball on the left-hand side could be taken out with a quarter, even though it's nowhere near the exit. How would you even quantify the mathematical It's impossible. Like
Yeah.
that thing that you're saying is part of the equation is an impossible thing that shouldn't belong in the equation. It can't interact with the balls next to the opener. It's just
Okay.
not possible.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get my head around that, but I'll take your word for that.
Well,
So
I mean, I'm doing a bad exact. Like, it's like me saying that you can. If we're taking all the things that you can do, and I
Yep.
say that you can jump into the sun, that's
Yeah.
very clearly something you can't do just because the sun and you exist.
I would say I could. Well, I would
Okay,
say
a
there is
sun a
no,
million
no, no.
light
Okay,
years
but okay,
away.
wait. The way I would put this, there's a probability of me being able to jump into the sun, but it's probably.
there?
I think there weirdly is a probability. It would just be 1 over like an even bigger number than this. Like say
I mean, I think that the probability is based on the fact that you exist and the sun exists, and I don't think that that's any fucking way to determine what actually exists.
the probability is based on the fact. I mean, how else do you determine? So again, yeah, we're getting back to the point. You don't even believe in probabilities, but how do you determine
indulge it
anything?
for this because it's so insane? Like the
But how do you-
idea that because you exist
Yeah.
and some distant star in the fucking like another galaxy exists,
Yeah.
that there is a probability for you to jump into that star is insane. I don't
Okay.
think that that's even possible. Like,
Okay.
So I think the fine-tuning argument is
Yeah.
it's not a good argument because it doesn't allow you to prove any of God's attributes. Like
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
It really just
so-
gets you
it
to
does for one. It does for one, which is creation.
creation and
God,
perhaps
if you're talking about
supreme
creation,
power.
God creates
yeah, but
shit.
then so let's say that the fine-tuning argument proves that there is a mind behind the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what kind of power does this mind have? Is it infinite power? How would you answer that question based off of only there being a
Well,
mind?
it would have to
Right.
be equal to or greater than the sum of the universe. So.
Yes, but then that's finite.
Then it wouldn't be omnipotent. Yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying.
no,
it
but
it
God
leads you to
isn't
this
omnipotent.
like
He's all powerful. He's not omnipotent in the true sense of infinite power. He is all powerful.
Well,
yeah,
there's two kinds of having all power. There's having power in variety and power in extent. I can throw every. Let's take for example. I can throw every ball. I can throw any ball you give me.
yeah.
I am omnipotent in the variety of throwing balls. But does that mean I can throw a ball halfway across the universe? No. If
Right,
I
but to
can-
do
I can
something on the
throw-
example of creating the universe, you would have to do everything that is possible within the universe because you arbit it. Or you arbited
Yes.
it.
Yeah, but then the theory would be that he's
So-
outside of the universe. So he's also has the power to do things that are outside of the universe. Like, for instance,
Well,
I don't know.
presumably minimal power because it would only be provable that he could do what was in the universe and then also be existent outside of it. So at most you'd be able to say that he
Yeah.
exists outside the universe. But
Yeah. I don't think that's a problem. What do you think about that, Sean? Do you think that's a problem for the fine-tuning argument that it only proves that God
Yeah.
is as powerful as the universe would need him to be for it to exist, but that it
Well,
also
yeah,
doesn't limit him to the universe, obviously. But
Well, yeah, it doesn't allow you to know what God really is. Like God is the same thing as the mind that's behind the universe, but you can't really know much about that.
True, but only certain experiments get you to certain conclusions about the state of the universe. That doesn't mean we can't make further inquiry about it. It's not necessarily that those experiments are bad experiments because they don't tell you everything about the universe.
Well, yeah.
yeah, and I agree.
It's also that I think it's a convincing argument. It's not really a certain argument.
I see.
Yeah,
what
I
you
mean, it's definitely convincing. I do
Yeah.
have to go here in a few seconds, but I will end on this.
Yeah. Say what you want to say, brother.
The fine-tuning argument presupposes what creation is, like how we determine creation. And I would leave off in this, like, how do we determine creation? Because it isn't by complexity, right? An atom is the most complex thing that we've ever discovered
Yeah.
in terms of like how small it is, how well it functions
Yep.
for the state of it making up things. We didn't make it. And that means
yeah.
that none of our shit is complex at all in comparison.
No.
that mean-
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that.
Does that mean that none of our stuff is designed?
What? No, I'd say, if anything, the whole atom thing, that would prove that design. Oh, you're saying like, well, just because complex things are probably designed doesn't mean that less complex things can't be designed.
Right, but I'm saying it's not by complexity that we determine design.
No. Yeah. I understand that. Yeah, it is not simply the nature, level of complexity which proves the design. I understand what you're saying there.
Right.
Like a
I'll be
watch
back.
is less complex. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, brother. I
I'll be
appreciate you
back to
joining.
discover.
Well,
Yeah,
come
I'll
on
probably
back
just
if we're
stay-
still here. Feel free to hop in to the Discord and
Yeah.
come by any other day, any other time as well.
All right. When do you stream and shit?
I'm pretty much every day. It's gonna be kind of Monday, Wednesday, Friday for sure, and then if I'm feeling it, I'll go on a Tuesday or a Thursday as well. But yeah, the best way to know is just if you're interested, hit that notification bell. It's a little corny, but if you do it, then at least you'll know, and then you obviously don't have to join, but it'll be there.
Here. All right. We'll be back in about a half hour.
Cool, brother. See ya.
That's about it.
So Sean, first let's go to the chat and see. I see we have a comic Brandon. Welcome back, comic Brandon. You're a beast, bro. Sorry, I missed a couple streams. 1-to-1 probability for life. It's not a book until you put a cover and bind the pages. We're getting back to the point where you don't understand probability, as I've tried to express to you before, Law. What if its only power is creating universes? What if it's the only thing it exists for? Not maintaining them, not giving them parameters, just creating universes. Nope. I can create a computer that I have no utility for with software I don't understand on it. I would argue you absolutely cannot create a computer that you don't understand, Brandon. And by create, I know you can put together, you can do a PC build. Yeah, I did think you'd quit on me. Thought or hoped? No, I'm just kidding. But Brandon, if you create a computer, as in you're the first person to create the computer, you know absolutely everything that there is, especially if you're the only one, like you had no help, then you would definitely know the ins and outs of that computer, without a doubt, and how every single part works, and the software, because you would have created that as well. Yeah. Good stuff, Alex. Yeah, the thing about... So I respect the hell out of that guy. You know, he was a little self-congratulatory about his debating skills when really it all came down to you don't believe in probabilities, which it does seem like a presupposition. So I understand about that. But I thought that was good. Sean, do you have anything that you want to add on? Well, it looks like we got him back. But anyway, Sean, do you have anything you want to add on about...
I had a phone.
Fine-tuning or anything?
Well, yeah, as I said, it's a convincing argument. It's not really a certain argument. So the difference between a certain argument and a convincing argument is that a certain argument has self-evident principles, valid arguments, and that tells you that the conclusion is true, like the proof for an equilateral triangle.
Yep. And the fine-tuning does not... And where does the fine-tuning argument fail on those standards?
Well, then a convincing argument is an argument which is just made up to convince you of something.
Right.
It's probable. They're also called probable arguments.
Okay, gotcha. Definitely sounds like fine-tuning is a probable argument.
Well, kind of literally, because
yeah,
of what it's about.
like quite literally, yeah.
Can I be heard?
Oh, yeah. You're like muted. You're going in and out of being muted, so I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm on push to talk. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the reason that the argument isn't exactly a well structured. So it's well structured. It's not. It's the truth of its claims aren't self-evident. They're presupposed. If you want to read them out there, I can deconstruct them. I'm just walking around.
Yeah, the ones that I had brought up on Grok before, or do you want somewhere else?
No, you can read out.
Well, so this is all. Do you want more than just the high entropy state, or do you want like a
Oh,
give.
I'm talking about the fine-tuning argument itself.
Okay. I'm just gonna have Grok give me the fine-tuning argument. The way that I formulate it is, and it's not at all a proper formulation. Just the way I think about it is, if the probability of life, existence, the accretion of matter, basically anything existing in the universe is this astronomically, ridiculously, impossibly small probability, then you need some sort of outside force in order to instantiate a probability that is ridiculously small. Like, for instance, my room being dirty is never that maybe there's a probable chance of the wind blowing through my window and like folding my clothes and putting them all back in the drawers and stuff like that. But that's going to be an extremely low probability. But the way that I can actually instantiate cleanness in my room is by putting energy into my room, doing it myself, using a mind, a consciousness to pick the stuff up, fold it, and put it in my drawer. How does that sound?
I mean, godliness is next to cleanliness.
Exactly.
I think we've done a little bit out here.
Yeah.
The thing that I would say
Mm-hmm.
is that, let's say before minds existed, right? I think you would agree. I mean, obviously you don't agree that before minds existed is a thing because God always existed, but let's say before human minds existed.
Sure.
Or like life existed.
Yep.
You would agree that there is no mover other than what you would think is God.
Yeah, and I don't and we don't even have to say God right now. We can just say other than the first cause, the uncaused cause, and you don't even have to worry about defining that.
Sure.
Unless you feel like you do have to worry about that. But for me, it's like if your argument is just okay. Anyway, keep going with your argument. I want to hear where this goes.
I would just say that any possibility in your view for how things could have been has the exact same probability that you are talking about. We are just the one. Your room could have had a sock in the left-hand corner, the right-hand corner, the corner over there. Like any of the corners, any spot in the middle, they were all equally possible.
Okay.
But they were, well, I mean, not in my view, but in your view, they were all equally possible. So, like, you're saying that, like, oh, it's this amount improbable. Well, it's just as improbable to roll a 1 on a 6-sided die as it is a 6. Is it that improbable?
Yeah, but what is it? Just as well, okay, I understand what you're saying. So on a 10 to the 10 to the 123rd power die, it's just as probable to roll a 1, which is what we have as the whatever. It's not anything else that doesn't equal existence. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, like that's the only thing that I would say. And like, again, like some of the calculations are a bit imprecise for my liking.
Sure.
I think that, I mean, we could say that everything we don't know is 50% and everything we do know is 50% in that argument. So like, who cares? It's probably about right. So like, in any case, like it's just as likely as any other state would be in any scenario. So like, why is it wrong for us to exist, right? Like, why is it so improbable to the fact that we currently are the one that was the outcome when there had to be some outcome? Right?
But the question is, what kind of outcome do you get? So, and tell me if I'm thinking about this wrong from your perspective, but there's, say only one out of this astronomical number is the one that leads to existence. Whereas, like, what Penrose suggests that if it falls in any of these other places, and I know you disagree with him, but then take the cosmological constant, whatever. The precision of that is
what happens after that is my main thing. What happens after
then there's simply non-existent. So if 10 to the 120th power options are not equal non-existence, and only one of them, or like 10 of them, or 20 of them, or whatever, equal existence, then doesn't it seem like that's a reasonable...
I don't agree with nothing. I don't agree with the existence of nothing. So, personally...
Yeah, well, neither do I, yeah.
Yeah, so personally, I think nothing is a fun idea, right?
Yeah.
It's a linguistic issue.
Yeah, I
As in,
agree.
like, you can't talk... Like, for instance, I don't know who said it. It's a philosopher or something, but, like, to speak of nothing is to speak of something that exists. Right?
Yeah.
So... I think that this so-called collapse of existence
Well, I'm
even if
not,
it
but I'm not even
happens,
talking about
would just
nothing.
lead.
I'm not talking about nothing.
Well,
You
no,
would
I
just
know, I'm
for
saying,
most of these, you would just expect cosmic soup.
right, but if you say cosmic soup, what happens at the heat death of the universe and the recombination of it?
What do you mean?
What happens if it's a cyclical universe and it just compacts, expands, creates stuff, and
Yeah.
compacts,
That is
expands?
that's what you would have to say to explain this probability, is what I think. Is that what you want to say
Well,
to
no,
explain the probability,
I don't.
or?
No, I'm saying that that's like one likely scenario to solve the issue,
I
right?
don't
Because
see it
if
as
the
that. I don't
recombination
see
then will
it.
happen.
You see that as not logically inconsistent to have a cyclical universe such that it causes its own effect, or you're saying like this is actually an infinite timeline backwards, and so each universe is like different, but it like expands and collapses and expands and collapses. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that that idea necessarily would solve it if it is true,
Okay.
and I think it is just as likely as any other theoretical model of something that we cannot investigate. For instance, God
Okay.
and what I'm saying are both unfalsifiable claims.
God and what you're saying are both unfalsifiable claims. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so for instance, God solves this issue,
Yep.
and this solves this issue.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if there's two solutions, well, I believe one over the other.
Yeah, I'm just gonna differentiate what between ones that I believe, which one makes is more intuitive to me and makes more sense, is where I'm gonna kind of make my choice between two sort of unfalsifiable claims. So then, given the whole context of like, I don't know, the pragmatic benefit of Christianity, or like my personal experience with it, or maybe even the other arguments, if you want, like the that I maybe do agree with more or whatever. That is going to inform why I choose one of the two unfalsifiable claims. But also, there's this intrinsic thing where you're saying that this like sort of that this repeating universe, this cyclical universe, or this infinite universe is as logical as God, or is as reasonable. So it's just the weight of it is just as good as
I'd
choosing
argue
that.
it's more.
That doesn't make sense to me, because how is a material infinity, which I know you don't believe in, more
Well, no,
probable
not
than an
material
abstract
infinity,
infinity?
temporal.
What's
Well,
that?
it's not a material infinity. It's a temporal infinity.
That's different than a material infinity.
But yeah, 'cause there isn't infinite things.
But there would be, because they're in time, right? Oh no, it's finite
Same
things that are just like, it's the same matter, like just repeating over and over again. So does that matter? Does that intrinsic amount of matter, whatever that little dot at the beginning of the Big Bang, which is now our whole universe, which will then be another dot again, does that have a beginning? Did that come into existence at any
No
point,
evidence
or
for it.
you would say that existed just infinitely, or it exists infinitely in both
I
directions?
wouldn't affirm. I wouldn't affirm it, but I wouldn't deny it.
Okay, it's at least a possibility that it is.
Don't believe in possible. It
That's
might
where
be,
I
yes.
think I finally got you. You don't believe in possibilities, but you can't affirm or deny this thing. So it's not possible, but it's also not true. So what is it?
Well, it's I wouldn't say that it's confirmed or denied. That's the only thing.
That's
I
it.
don't
Okay.
I don't have any statement about it.
Okay. Okay. I'm losing the quality of the
That's
I
what
don't know.
unfalsifiable means.
Yeah. That you can't confirm it to be either true or false. Or I guess specifically that you can't confirm it to be false. Okay. Okay. I understand.
And
Now,
since
What's
your
that?
thing is like supernatural, it's inherently not as viable as a
No.
material.
Now, why is it inherently not as viable? Break that down for me, because I'm lost on that. Because you're proposing
from a reason standpoint, yeah.
you're proposing an infinity of time, and I'm proposing an infinity of sort of goodness or abstraction, really. Are you going to say time is also abstract, or, which I guess maybe it is. It doesn't seem that abstract, but maybe it is.
What do you mean by abstract?
As in, does time, so time sort of, time transcends the universe, or what, or sorry, the observable universe, like from the Big Bang to now to the heat death of the universe. Time is this thing that sort of marches on beyond any Big Bang? Like, would you say that time was
because that dawn. Well, no, because you're saying because that dawn isn't outside of time, and
the what?
time isn't outside the dawn.
Yeah, that's why it's so that's why it's so unintuitive, your thing. So for my thing, it doesn't.
Like, because you're thinking that this is some kind of outside of this ball, but that's not a thing. That doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is the ball.
Okay, so let me try to I don't know if you can see my MS Paint still. Let me try to draw what you believe, just so I'm clear. So this is the ball. This is all matter that sort of just perpetually exists, right?
The universe.
Yeah, the universe. And time is an attribute of this, or it's an
attribute.
It's an attribute of this. So
yeah, like the muscles of the heart are an attribute of the heart and makes it expand.
The muscles of the heart are an attribute of the heart. Gotcha. That makes sense. So time either sort of makes it expand, or it just sort of is.
That's what the matter does in subjective time.
Right. It plays out as the expansion happens for some unknown reason.
Well, the known reason would be that nothing can't exist because that doesn't make sense.
Sorry, it kind of sounds like you're underwater, like you're working on a deep sea oil drill or something. I don't know if your mic is covered or something, but I didn't really catch.
I said that like matter has to exist because nothing cannot exist.
Nothing cannot exist. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that.
So what is the
so everything that exists, which is everything, exists in this sort of like dense ball at the beginning, and then it comes out, and then eventually we get like heat death, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And now necessarily what's going to happen is that heat death starts to condense back into this ball. Is that basically the theory?
Rudimentary. We don't know exactly what will happen, but something like that. It's called the recombination event.
The recombination theory. Right.
Well, event is not a theory, not a theory.
Oh, event. Okay, got you. So is this system, the whole system of heat death and recombination and all that stuff, it would
solve the issue?
Sure, it can solve the issue, but this just exists infinitely?
I don't know. I don't know. It's like if I asked like what happened before the heaven and the earth, like what happened before the light that you would know. Like did God just exist? He didn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So it just doesn't seem so. And does this not seem like?
Here, 1 second. I have to do something.
Okay. Yeah.
Formulate a question.
Yeah, I'm gonna think about it for a sec. Alex, that's a good question. How do you know that nothing cannot exist? I do think that is a presupposition that he's probably making here, and it makes sense. The privation of existence is like, or something like that.
I mean, it's the definition of the word. It defines itself.
But I thought you said it doesn't exist, nothing.
Yeah, that's the definition of the word.
So it does exist? It has a definition?
There's a description of a lack of thing, yeah. Like how you say a whole.
Right. Okay. I got you. Yeah, I'm not sure actually if nothing is that important for this argument here, but yeah, Comic Brandon's going to throw in once it's observed, it's not nothing. That's what you said earlier. Like, when you're even thinking about nothing, you're thinking about something, like a concept or whatever. But I'm not sure that disproves that true nothingness exists. In the same way that you could like think about God, and that doesn't necessarily mean that God doesn't exist.
Yeah, I was about to say that kind of just disproves if you think about God, like the ontological argument just kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, I mean the ontological argument, by the way, is like probably one of the weakest ones. I don't really use that one to really try to convince people, but
it's like
it's fun. It's fun if you already presuppose the end, then it's like just a cute thing. you go like, oh, that's fun that God
Yeah,
did that.
it's really a big circular argument.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
I mean, like, obviously, I don't know if this person was here when you were reading it, but to speak of something is to speak of something that exists. So, like, linguistically, nothing is a confusing word.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just the necessity of talking about the idea, which,
Yeah.
again, we can't actually think of.
You can't actually
Um,
think of it, but does that
even-
mean that it doesn't exist just because you can't think of it? Is that what you're implying?
Well, I mean, no. I'm saying that we can't think of it as in, like, we lack the capability of.
Yeah,
sti-
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
did you feel before you existed?
Well, I sure don't know, do I?
That's what nothing. That's what nothing.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know that before I existed, that's nothing. Because what if I felt infinite joy and
Well,
pleasure?
I'm talking about. Well, no, I'm talking about like. Well, I mean, then I'm definitely gonna like end it all now because that's how that is.
Right,
But,
right,
like,
right.
The the thing I mainly mean is that like when people ask like what is nothing, the closest thing I can imagine to like conceptualizing it in language is the word or being like what did it feel like when you didn't exist?
Yeah, that's about as close as you get, but then you're still already thinking of blackness or whatever. Oh, there's an attribute, therefore it's not nothing. You know,
Like space.
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
space.
some kind of empty thing.
Yeah.
Even the whole is like a lack of something rather than not a thing.
Exactly. A lack of something conceptually absolutely impossible to hold in our mind, but obviously has reality to it in some way.
Yeah, it's the same. It's a mathematical tool. It's the same reason that 0 and infinity both have standards in mathematics. Like they
Right.
can be used.
Right. Which is so fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, I just have a hard time seeing how this is more like probable, or why this gets some sort of like ontological superiority over the more simple idea that, hold on.
It's a suspension of the natural laws of the universe, whereas this other version is only the natural laws of the universe.
Well, this is how
So
I
you're
would
not
frame.
going beyond.
So this is how I'd frame what I feel to be much more intuitive. But so say this is the begin. Say there is a
I can't
beginning.
see your
Just
screen right now.
presume that. Oh, you can't see it. Oh, my bad.
No, it's not you. It's just that I just can't.
Oh, you can't look at. Okay, I got you. So I'm gonna draw it out and then try to explain it anyway, just because it helps me get my head around it. But so.
Oh yeah, for the stream.
Yeah, I'm for the stream. So actually they can't see it either, but here we go. So I don't see why that's more intuitive than there's this separation between infinity. There's this like substrate of godliness.
No, you're thinking about infinity.
True. Think of it as the some realm which is
We
separate.
can just say that which does not exist.
Well, that's a little confusing because I wouldn't say it doesn't exist. I'd say it exists more fundamentally. It's like the
is
only
this
thing
your
that does exist.
Oh, is this your model?
Yeah, on my model.
Okay, that makes more sense because
Yeah. On my model, it's like I wish you could see the paint, but basically I've drawn reality, material reality. Call it the Big Bang, but really what I mean is the universe. Like, if there's a trillion Big Bangs before ours, then go back to the entire causal chain to the first cause. Or do you deny that there is a first cause?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't believe that there's necessarily a first cause because there's no way to.
Jeez, it's just
I do
tough
not
when you
believe
say there's
existence
no
of
way
an
to prove.
uncaused cause.
But like intuitively, that makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Then because there's also no
Because
way to
all
prove.
we know is cause and effect.
Yeah, but uncaused cause is just the cause part of cause and effect. There's nothing contradictory about uncaused cause.
Well,
Causes-
there is,
causes
because
don't
everything
have-
we know to exist is cause.
No, only all the effects we know to exist have causes, but a cause doesn't have a
Effects are
cause. Yeah, they are causes of further causes down the line, further effects down the line. But there's nothing contradictory about saying an uncaused cause. There's absolutely nothing contradictory about that.
There is because everything has a cause.
No, well, you're just presuming that. That's not true. That's not even like
Well,
rationally true.
So you're correct. I presumed it. My apologies. You caught me out on something finally. But what I really mean is, and this is the reason that the Kalam argument says it the way that they do, everything that begins to exist must have a cause.
Yep, that's important.
I don't believe so. I think that everything necessarily, whether we arbitrarily define it or not, begins to exist. I don't believe that there is any necessary special pleading argument that can be made for any uncaused cause.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to break that down again for me again, brother. I got a little lost in the comments, and also I just lost you in general. So what's the special pleading? What's the special pleading that?
So basically, okay, I need there to be an uncaused cause for the rest of this system to work.
Okay.
So I'm going to make this special pleading argument so that I can have my starting point, even though.
But you need
you
infinite
don't know
time.
There's a starting point.
But you need infinite time to prove that your theory works, and therefore you presume infinite time. It's the exact same thing. They have the exact same weight, the presupposition.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're right. They both presuppose. Well, actually, I'd in fact say that I suppose infinite time. You suppose infinite medical time, like meta time.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which makes more sense that a meta thing would be infinite and not the subordinate.
But that's when you're saying. But you're saying that the universe is an effect from a cause. I'm just saying that I'm skipping that. I'm not going that far. I'm not saying that it's an effect from an uncaused cause. I'm saying it is the cause.
You're saying a cause is its own cause.
So are you, but you're adding a layer to it.
No. The uncaused cause does not cause itself. It exists. It just is. It just always is. No beginning, no end. It exists, and you can imagine, like you can actually, pretty easily in your imagination or in MS Paint, as I beautifully demonstrated, that there's nothing logically inconsistent about something just existing. I mean, you can say, that's fanciful. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's logically inconsistent. Right?
Okay.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Right? The idea of an uncaused cause, right?
Yeah.
The beginning of something is all over theology, right?
Right.
Creation myths and everything. It's not like illogical.
Yeah.
I am saying, however, if we're talking about simplicity, and like which one is more of a complex idea, adding this substrate meta time with this being that existed before the things that we know is a way more extravagant claim than just stating everything that we know to exist has always existed. That's why that's the first thing we thought of before creation myths. Everything just existed.
Yeah, that's why I don't think that's more. I don't think that's less complex. The infinite, because you're implying this like infinity of materiality, and I'm implying this infinity of immateriality. And so I don't understand why you're saying that that's somehow less.
Have you ever seen
complex.
the immaterial?
What?
So okay, and I said seen, which I know exactly what that's going to go. Can you demonstrate the immaterial?
Only sort of in imagination, or maybe if I was a better philosopher, maybe philosophically I could, but no, I mean I can't show it to you. I can't show it to you. No.
Well, I said demonstrate. I don't need you to.
I know. I'm not sure if I can demonstrate it. I have to think about that, but I'm not sure if I could. So I'll concede that I can't, or whatever.
I'd look up some stuff on that. There's some interesting philosophical stuff on that, like how to demonstrate immaterial objects and stuff.
Right.
Like, for instance, what is the pink elephant in my head? Because it's not the synapses firing, and it's not the pink elephant.
No, certainly not. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I would just then say that's what you experience as a result of the synapses. It's not your actual synapses. It's an experience.
And that means it doesn't exist. Yeah. I mean, I would say the big elephant in your head does exist, right?
Right, and so what I'm saying is essentially, you're inferring this extra reality in which this metaphysical thing exists, and I am not.
Well, you're definitely inferring extra reality than we can observe. 100% you are.
Then we can observe? I don't think so, because we observe all the matter that I'm talking about.
But you're talking about this. You're talking about this looping. You're talking about this unintuitive reconvergence of the heat death of the universe into some new universe, some new Big Bang where time like restarts, or the whole thing restarts. This is totally extra
Not
observational to
restarts,
us.
consistently, like constant.
Sorry, how is it not extra observational?
I'm saying it's not repeating, it's just constant.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
And
It's an
what we
infinite
will-
timeline. I mean, even worse. So then you're going, yeah, right. If it's not competing, then you're inferring even
Okay,
more.
here.
You're literally inferring infinite different universes.
You're inferring an internal God.
I'm
What
inferring
accepts
one
minds,
infinite
magic.
substrate. I'm inferring one infinite substrate, which we were talking earlier about divine simplicity, which is fundamentally simple. It's actually like divine simplicity. Have you heard of divine simplicity?
So I show that to the stream. I have to go inside for a second, but yeah, show that to the stream now.
Okay.
Like, I'm in it.
Oh, you're like in the stream. Okay, cool. I kind of missed what. So you're out. So you're not. You can't talk right now or something. Is that what's happening? All right. So what I'll just keep going. So what I got you. Okay. So what I'm saying is that I'm inferring one infinite being, really, that ultimately is divinely simple. You're inferring infinite different universes, all with what, different laws? I guess you'd say if they have existence within these universes, they have somewhat similar laws or consistent laws or something like that. But this is totally conjecture. I mean, this is like, I don't see what's the proof of that outweighs the very intuitive idea of one necessary being deciding to create a reality. But I know you can't really answer me right now, so that makes sense. Maybe we will. Let me go to the chat real quick and see what they got to say about this.
Every time the chat thinks they're getting their turn, I come back.
I know, exactly. I am gonna read the chat and see what's up for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Comic Brandon. By the way, he's the heel of the chat. In case you.
Hey, that's my name.
Oh, really? Your name is Brandon? Okay, good. We got a lot of
it is,
Brandon. Got a lot of Brandon action in here. Comic Brandon purposefully makes circular and sort of like sometimes just mean statements and arguments, and so we like to laugh at him and laugh with him. But he's ultimately a good guy. We love
What's
you,
the
Brandon.
funniest thing he said?
The funniest thing he says is that I look like Toad from X-Men.
He might be projecting.
That's what I think. But I think there's some truth to it. But most people just project those types of things. Anyway, how do you know that nothing can? Oh, we already went over that. We were discussing this through a pretty conservative lens. We don't know much about anything in the grand scheme of things. I'll agree with you, Alex. It's good to have a little humility here. I don't want to claim that I have omniscient knowledge. I want to be clear that we're just talking about.
There's a substrate outside the universe that has a god.
But I'm not claiming that to be true. That just seems more likely. That is simpler than what you're what you're putting forward.
I would deny that it's simpler because it's not the first thing we came up with as a human species.
Oh, so the first thing we came up with is the most truthful.
Right. So a baby
Yeah.
just thinks everything is.
Yeah, and I would say a baby is most right about that, and I'll agree with you about that. I'll agree with you on that.
I just think it's more likely. I don't think that it is the case, but it's more likely that everything always has been, rather than this special pleading first mover.
It's not even special pleading. It's just like I also think
everything
it's
has
just,
a cause except my one thing. That's special pleading.
Everything has a cause except my one thing, and your thing is everything has a cause. Always
Forever.
Ad infinitum forever, despite how illogical and intuitive that is.
Well, how is it illogical?
Well, because then so you have infinite causes going back, so nothing started this chain of causation. Does that, I mean, when you think of causation, you imagine it as this like chain of events, one thing leading to the next, leading to the next. I mean, this is the most basic.
There's no end to the chain and there's no beginning to the chain. No one's ever discovered either.
Right. So if there's no beginning or end of the chain, then the whole thing is like completely logically contradictory. It's an unintuitive.
I assume you're talking about an infinite regress, but
yeah, the infinite
regress. I
regress.
think that that's a logical contradiction.
An infinite regress. Well, I know Aquinas has got something on this.
He's definitely got.
I know that Aquinas. This is what we were talking about, the simplicity of God before, which is very interesting. I wish Sean was here to give me the exact, just with his autistic knowledge, just pull up. Yeah, I will.
Control F, look up the subject matter.
Okay. I just have to remember what kind of language he would use for this. Moving.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what it
he
was.
was a bit of a drama queen, wasn't he?
Movement.
I'd look up mover.
Mover. Yeah, that's a better one. Okay. That's probably not going to be it. The existence of God in things. Oh, the eternity of God. Here we go.
Oh yeah, I'd also want to put to you that technically your God is also infinitely regressing. So.
No, because he doesn't regress into anything. He just has everything already. He infinitely is. Yeah, he's eternal.
Yeah,
but that's not regressive.
That's the same thing.
What's that?
Yeah, that's the same thing. Like I know people like to say he just is, but like, when did he begin to be, or when did he start? He didn't. So that means he continuously goes back and back.
But well, it's a little different because I mean, there's no time on that scale, on that level. Once everything is subsumed into the total unity of God, there's absolutely
I'd agree,
no
but
time.
he did something. If he never did anything, then it would equivalent, like it would just be a moment.
Yeah, the first thing
something.
that action defined time, that created time.
So he wasn't. So the moment he created something was the moment he existed.
No, because I don't think existence isn't confined to time. Not only things in time.
But is it confined to God?
Existence is, I guess. I mean, existence is an attribute of God. It's part that would be essential to him.
All right, so he can't contradict himself.
How is this? I don't understand how creating time is a contradiction to his existence.
Well, like for instance, if I have a part of me that is time dependent, what about the rest of me?
Well, he has no parts. He's divinely simple. So at his level, all what we perceive as parts, say time and power and justice and mercy and whatever it is, and we can go to the divine simplicity. All of those equal God. They are his essence, and there's no difference between any of them. So the highest good equals justice or time or all these.
So reality is an aspect of him.
Reality. Reality would be, is it aspect? It would be, shit, we just went over this, Sean and I. So he has his essence, which is sort of unknowable, and then I guess you would say his attributes. Yeah, reality would be sort of like, I like to think of it more like a shadow or like an effect of his action or something like that. But yeah, so sorry, what was the point?
Well, I'm more saying that he can't have any part of him that contradicts any other part. Having part of him be in time and part of having him be separate from time is a contradiction.
Oh, I don't think so. What? Explain to me why that's a contradiction. Why you
couldn't be eternal and having part of him not be eternal is literally a contradiction. Like it's a true contradiction. It's an affirmative and a negative, or no, not a negative, an affirmative and a not affirmative.
Okay, so if God, in one realm or in one plane of existence or whatever, and the highest one, and the infinitieth dimension or whatever, has no time. What's that?
Which is definitely divinely complex. And
well, no, I know. I mean, I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just like being a little glib right now by trying to illustrate that there is some sort of like realm,
higher dimension,
higher place. You know, I'm just trying to use language to get a point across.
God's room.
God's room, exactly. In God's room, where all things are subsumed into literal oneness, like total simplicity, no parts. This is how Aquinas is going to say it. God does not consist
is made up of like
parts.
0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 10 times.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So he has no parts on that level. The fact that he would then create something like separate from himself, purposefully, and then put, like, enter into that, I don't see how that would cancel out the like sort of perfection of unity that he has outside of the thing that is separate from him. Does that make sense?
Well, so I'm saying that like him being outside of time and then being subject to time, for instance, Jesus Christ being subject to time because he's man.
But that's why the Trinity is so important. I mean, there's God the Father, who's not subject to time, and God the Son, who is subject to time.
Exactly, and I'm saying that is a contradiction. He is subject to time and is not subject to time. Unless you want to say that they are true, that you're talking about like a true Trinity where there are three gods.
No. One God in three persons.
Yeah, so it's three aspects of himself and a fourth of reality. Yeah.
So when Jesus is up with the Father, it's oneness. But when we perceive him, like when we look at him in our sort of dense three-dimensional realm, it looks as if everything is separate and multiplicitous, and that Jesus obviously still is God, but he's in time. But that means that God. So when Jesus enters into time, then God suddenly has contradicted himself. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, I think that is a contradiction. Yeah, I think that if you were to lower yourself into like another dimension, and then also say that you're not in that dimension, that's a contradiction. Like to say that those two things are true. Obviously, if you want to say that, like,
but did he ever say that? But he specifically didn't say that he lowered all of himself, because God the Father obviously stays in heaven. So he obviously
didn't,
like
lowering your hand into something, right? Not like diving in.
Sure, yeah. So that's actually a good analogy. So lowering your hand into a glass of water, so your hand is wet and the rest of your body isn't wet, that's a contradiction?
Yeah, so actually I was about to give you a very similar analogy to beat this this argument. The main thing you'd say is like, what country are you in if my hand is in Canada?
Well, I could be in America if my hand's in Canada, truly.
Yeah. So I'm both in Canada and in America, no contradiction.
Yeah, that's what I would say. It's an and or, no contradiction. The same with God being in time and out of time. It's an and. Mm-hmm. It's an and or, not. It's not a. Wait, it's an.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just throwing time shit at you at this point. I'm just giving you shit.
You are a bad faith debater, my friend. We're catching you out. Anyway, okay, this is fine.
No, I like, this isn't like I'm gonna crush every argument that you're giving. Like, I like to discuss. Like,
no, I know,
shit arguments for God are and shit arguments for not God are.
Yeah, no, and I totally get you, and I like the way that you pronounce A's and say shit, and so I appreciate that. And so I actually do really appreciate that, but I also really appreciate your rigor here, your intellectual rigor, and your willingness to be here and spend this time with me. And I know I'm being a little difficult. I kind of sometimes I'm a little slower than other times. Today I'm sort of in the middle. Feel a little slow. Don't feel.
Well, I mean, I know I'm not going to convince you, so like it's just a shooting shit.
Exactly, it's shooting the shit, and I have no real belief that I'm going to convince you of anything, of course. But that's how debates are. We just do the best we can, right?
I don't mean to insult a lot better people have tried.
To insult what?
I said a lot better have tried to convert me.
Oh, right.
I'm sure the same is for you. Like, there's probably a lot better people that talk to you about this than I have.
Probably not in this stream yet. You're definitely the most. Actually, there are other arguments that you haven't drawn on that are way better for me. Like, once you get to the point of I don't believe in probability, it's hard for me to even. It's almost like.
Well, I believe in probability. I don't believe in possibility.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant. The fact that you don't believe in other possible universes sort of invalidates a lot of what you're gonna say. It's gonna invalidate anything you say attached to that. To me, does that make sense?
But I don't need any of it. Yeah, but I don't need any of that.
Well, I know you don't, but for me to be like a rational, logical creature, you haven't connected this. You haven't connected these dots for me. Why it's not valid, it's not existent, it's not real to imagine myself choosing a blue shirt instead of a red shirt and calling that a possible universe. You're saying that all probability equals 1, which I just fundamentally is so unintuitive.
I don't think possibility exists. It's not that it equals anything. It's just that
if there's no such thing as if there's no such thing as possibility, then all probability equals 1. No?
Well, no, because things are probable.
But not if they're not possible for anything else to happen.
Things are probable, but only have one answer.
So they're not probable. Like, they just are. They just are.
No, it's just there's just unknown factors. Like, we don't know everything. Obviously, every equation will equal the thing we want if we knew everything.
Okay.
No, if we knew everything, right?
But so you just don't believe in like ultimate I'm talking about ultimate probability. Ultimately.
Oh, sure, yeah. Everything is deterministic, right? Like, all the sums.
Yeah, again, so it's like, right? That's a presupposition you have. I respect that. A lot of people have it. I don't know how to. I don't think there's any way for me to sort of convert you out of that presupposition. But you haven't made any formal proof. You're just saying, I presuppose that everything is deterministic, therefore possibility doesn't exist.
Well, I think there's
ultimately probability doesn't exist. I mean, what is the evidence? I'm interested in that. What is the evidence that? What is the evidence of that?
So the evidence of that is that reality is here, right? We are in a reality, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, we exist in a reality. Yeah.
Okay. And cause and effect determine the reality that we currently exist in, right?
Yes, I would say cause and yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Are any of those cause variable?
Variable in the sense that they could be otherwise.
No, variable in the sense that they were otherwise.
Well, no.
Exactly.
But then you just ignore the idea of could be.
Yeah, because it could not have been.
But this is presuppositional. You see that, right?
Well, no, because that's how it was. The affirmation is a rejection of the opposite.
Okay, let me think about this.
It's like saying one plus one does not equal 3 because it equals 2.
Right,
I'm not
right.
presupposing that it doesn't equal 3. I'm saying it equals 2.
Yeah.
And the proof is 1 plus 1.
Right. Yeah, this is extremely unintuitive, so I do have to think about this.
Sean, the topic of discussion is determinism and probability.
I'm making the claim. I made the claim quite boldly that this determinism is just a total presupposition with basically no evidence, and the evidence you've just provided me is that we live in reality. Reality is determined by cause and effect. No cause which leads to the effect of my personal right
Current
here,
reality,
right now existence. It was otherwise than it was. It was not variable, as you put it. Therefore, well, what's the therefore?
There are no possible worlds. Therefore, there's no.
Therefore, there are no possible worlds. It just seems ridiculous.
Okay, so if
it
you
just
want to
seems
get
like
into it,
if
you want to get into it, technically we are the only possible world.
Okay, so
If
there's
you're taking all the
one possible
definitions-
world. So you believe in one possible world.
I mean, technically it's not possible because it is, but like.
Got you. Yeah. For all intents and purposes, you believe in no possibility because it just is. Because there's just one world. That's all there is.
Yeah, if there was one possible world, it wouldn't be a possible world. It would be the world.
And to the point of the illusion of your free will, that's all it is. It's just an illusion.
Well, it's beneficial. It's a beneficial illusion.
Well, forget that, but it is an illusion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just giving reason for why it would be, why it exists. Like,
Okay.
It's not just here for no reason. It's because it's
Yeah.
for us.
And what about the absolute, just in your bones to the core of your belief? It's the most intuitive thing about you is that you can choose whether you're going to have a coffee or a tea in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's beneficial.
It's just beneficial for you to believe that, but that means that the actual choice that you feel as if you're making is not real. It just isn't real.
Yeah, no, it's not real.
Ah,
A lot of our intuitions aren't real. Haven't been real throughout history. The Earth isn't flat.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand that a lot of intuitions are not true, not real.
One of these are one of the more basic, the more base ones. I will agree, but a lot of our base ones aren't even intuitive either. Like a lot of what we thought was in the body, a lot of the time. Some societies thought that their hearts were in their stomachs.
Right.
That's like one of the most base things that you can feel.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, I realize that I'm not going to get you out of it. It's just, I'm just trying to wrestle with this because I realize I'm not going to convince you by just saying, come on, man, you don't feel it? Like, I get that you're beyond that point. Like, I understand that. So I'm just working through
I
this
also just
myself.
haven't felt it in a long time. So.
Yeah, that's a little sad, man. Do you ever feel like a slave like that?
Well, no, because I'm ultimately responsible for the choices that I make, whether or not I get to choose them in some sort of objective sense.
But that is still slave-like. I mean, if you're being held responsible for something that you absolutely didn't choose.
Well, I mean, I'm not owned, so I mean, if you're
I just mean not slave-like in the sense that you're owned by another person, but the sense that you actually have no freedom. So if you're going to cheat on your wife, you're actually just going to... There's only one possibility. There's only one world. So you are going to cheat on your wife.
I mean, there's only one possibility in a book. It's very emotive still.
In a what?
In like a book or a TV show. Like I enjoy the journey of both of those things, even if I find out the end. Like...
I understand that. I understand that you can still find enjoyment in it. Well, I think you'd have to, otherwise you'd probably just be depressed or whatever that would lead to.
Yeah, and a lot of people that, not a lot of people, but determinism has led to some kind of forms of nihilism. For instance,
Oh, it's
I think
totally
one of the-
nihilistic.
Well, I don't think it is nihilistic. I'm personally an optimist myself. I'm very happy with my life.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a very happy person.
An optimist determinist. This is a first on the channel. I love it. Okay, explain.
Just happy. It's the simple things. I look forward to. First of all, the pure probability that I exist is astronomical, and so I'm thankful to whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Faith.
Yeah,
Or some
sure.
kind of emotion. I'm thankful about that, and I will use it in
Okay.
whatever way that one I'm going to, but two I feel like I want to.
Cool.
So that's the first thing, and also a bunch of small things. Like I want to see GTA 6 release. That's the first thing.
Right. Right.
You know, I want to see how far humanity goes. Right. If we invent cloning, space travel, you know, shit like that.
Yeah.
I want to see. I'm in the golden age of humanity. Right?
Totally. I completely agree with that. Yeah.
I'm in the make or break section of humanity, I'd imagine.
Totally.
And so I just want to see where things go, and I like that idea. And I know it's determined that I would like that idea, but that doesn't mean I don't like it.
That doesn't mean you don't like it. I get that. And so, can we go back to how do you assign blame to people or even to yourself when they do wrong things which are determined?
Sure. So I think that certain values are upheld because they're beneficial to society.
Okay.
I think a few of those things are obviously presupposed because, you know, it depends on the scale of them. Like truth might be better in one scenario than the other. You know, you wouldn't tell your kid that Santa doesn't exist.
Sure.
Right.
Like in a mean way or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, just because it's true.
Right.
But in certain other cases where you have to tell like a grieving widow that their husband died in a car crash,
Yeah, you have to just do it.
probably better, right?
Yeah.
So certain values on the minute scale are better, and then some people just take it a little bit up there, right? Like absolute truth, like I have to tell the truth about everything, right? You know, and I think that's really the difference between moralities in our world.
But
right?
I'm sorry,
People-
I missed where. So how, in what sense does anybody do anything wrong if they don't have a choice but to do the thing exactly what they are fated, as you would say, to do?
Well, so that's what I was getting to. I'm saying that like some people take that base morality or the lack of empathy for certain people, and they take it to an extreme to where it is damaging to society.
Yeah, but
Or
they didn't have a
societies.
choice. But it's not their fault because they didn't have a choice. Do you see
Doesn't
where?
matter. It's damaging to society. They lost the game of chess.
Okay, so it's also a little cruel. It's a little cruel, right? A little bit. I mean, I get what you're saying. You do have to punish them.
People.
No, and trust me, I agree that justice should be enacted. Like we went over this in Aquinas actually.
Justice is mean.
What's that?
It's literally justice, and sometimes justice is mean.
Yeah. But it's justice. It's really not justice because if you're getting justice, then you would actually hold it against the entire causal chain or the entire universe. You wouldn't hold it against the person that happens to be the conduit at that moment when he decides to do the Holocaust or whatever the horrible
That's why
thing
if
is.
I was a Christian, I wouldn't like.
Why do you say that?
Well, you believe in possible worlds, right?
Yeah, of course, and free will. So the reason I believe that, and I'm not, again, I hate this argument. I know you're gonna hate this when Christians go, the only way to be moral is to believe in God. Of course not. Of course not.
Oh,
You can
no, that's not where I'm going with that.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
mainly
yeah.
saying that do you believe God could have created a different? He's free will, right?
Depends on what you
maximally
mean,
powerful.
because I don't think God could have created anybody that loves him and that he loves in the true reciprocal sense of love without giving them free will. And I think free will necessitates the possibility of sin and suffering and ultimately the Holocaust and things like that. So it's like,
Well, I
could
think that
God
goes
have
in
made
spite of
another world?
Genesis.
What's that?
I think that actually goes in spite of Genesis. Did
Oh, yeah.
Adam and Eve have free will before the apple?
Well, clearly, yeah, they chose to eat the apple.
Right. So they chose to eat it. Like, what if God just didn't put the tree there? Would
That
he
is
still
the
love
that
Adam and
is
Eve?
the common thing. If God
Right, would he
did
have
not,
still loved Adam and Eve, and would they have chosen to love him? Because he was okay with that. As he described it, it was the most beautiful place in the universe.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
were cast into something dark.
yeah.
And then obviously the story of Jesus is the retelling of Adam. Same with Mary,
yeah.
the retelling of Eve. if you believe in
Typology, yeah.
Catholicism,
yeah.
right? So
Yep.
obviously, the cleansing of sin from you doesn't necessitate the cleansing of free will from you. Right?
The cleansing of sin. No, yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But well then, in terms of
just
should he have
don't
put the tree
there?
But then he wouldn't have been allowed to bring about the greatest good, which was his son Jesus Christ.
But his son Jesus Christ is just the redemption of Adam.
No, not true. His son Jesus Christ is much greater than the redemption of Adam. It has larger cosmic theological implications than just
nothing that wasn't already integrated into himself already. Unless you think that
fair
the
enough.
New Testament God is more powerful than the Old Testament God, or more good.
No, but I think it's clear that he brings about greater, from his perspective, of course not. He's outside of time, so he just has everything that ever is and ever could be. But in the limited framework of time, obviously greater good, the society, the reality we live in, like you said, the golden age of right now, obviously is a greater reality, a greater good than whatever societies existed 5,000 years ago. I mean, they were just horrific.
God would disagree with you, or at least the apostles or the people
No,
the Bible would
no.
disagree with you, because Genesis literally describes the garden as the most beautiful place in the universe. Obviously, they didn't use universe, but is the most beautiful, the goodest place.
Yeah.
And so that's better than now. So it can't be a greater good. In fact, it avoids so much suffering that I would deny it even possibly be a greater good.
You don't think that the kingdom of heaven could be a greater good than the Garden of Eden? What I mean, the kingdom of heaven is an eternal.
No,
but the kingdom of heaven is only brought about by the sacrifice of the Son.
No, that's not only the only way he could have brought that about. God could have done that snap of his fingers right there.
I'm not sure about that. Not if he wanted to preserve free will.
Well, but you literally already said that the garden and the fall of man does not necessitate free will.
No, yeah, free will existed, but Satan's free will is
go.
what necessitated the fall of man, though. That's what I'm saying. That's where I would take that.
And that was because of the creation of humanity. Humanity
Sure.
is Lucifer's tree.
Interesting. The humanity is Lucifer's tree. No.
Well, yeah, because he created humanity.
God created
God
humanity.
loved them so much
That
that he
Lucifer.
asked everything in creation to treat them with just as much reverence as God.
Yeah.
Lucifer could not do that.
Yeah, because Lucifer had already fallen at that point, is my understanding, unless you have some other scripture that points to that. But I don't. It's not my view, and I've listened to other theologians on this, that Lucifer fell before the creation of man.
I think that is true, as far as I've read, but I'm not sure that he was completely unredeemable before the fall of man.
I mean,
he literally was able to enter the garden, and he was able to disguise himself as a Nephilim.
Nephilim, as a snake first, and then.
Well, no, as a. What are the fucking baby angels called?
The cherubim.
The cherubims.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was able to take on, and No, I'm thinking of Milton now. But yeah, no, he was able to do all these things. He was able to enter these places of way holier power, churches, crosses.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
He's still able to enter churches, obviously, and all sorts of places. Yeah.
Right, but the Garden of Eden is the goodest place, and he was able to enter there. So I don't think he was completely thrown out and separate from God at that point, right? I don't think that's true.
Well, I can't remember exactly where it is, if it's in Romans or something like that, but it says when Satan fell, he fell like a lightning bolt from the heavens. So it was immediate. The separation was violent and immediate. And so does that mean he's locked away in hell, he can never walk amongst people on Middle Earth?
Michael,
no.
It's because he's thrown out by Michael, though. He's not thrown out by God, and that's the biggest thing in the Bible. Is that
sure.
Personally, I think. Even Lucifer in the Bible, I think even Lucifer.
Yeah.
Can be forgiven.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I'm partial to that.
Because, I think that even Lucifer can be forgiven. I think the whole New Testament sets up even the greatest sins can be forgiven.
Yeah.
And so, if that's the case,
yeah,
I think that Lucifer is not completely separate from God, and at very most, at this point in time, before the temptation, he's definitely not separate from God.
Yeah,
obviously, a deconversion, lightning bolt, that's a big thing.
Yeah,
but he's not. He doesn't not exist anymore.
No. I mean,
so he is part of it.
Wait, sorry, say the last thing because I agree with you on every single point so far. So what's the very last thing you just said?
My main thing is that I'm pretty sure he's still a part of him. He is not completely separate from God because he still exists. Anything that is completely separate from God ceases to exist.
Just doesn't exist. I mean, I completely agree with that, but I don't see how that refutes my argument that that Satan's free will causes evil and sin to enter creation, reality, whatever. Free will is a good.
I was never disagreeing with that. I was more talking about that I don't think that... so I think that Lucifer's tree was humanity because he would not love them as God commanded because he was in love with God. He was God's favorite son. That's my opinion.
Okay,
I don't know if the scriptures necessarily back that up 100%.
Yeah.
But I think thematically it works because the fall of sons is constant throughout the Old Testament. The fall of Lucifer, the fall of Adam, the fall of Cain.
Yeah.
It's constant.
And they're also sequential though. So I don't think there's any real way. It's not like you would say like Cain fell, or you wouldn't say Adam fell the moment Cain fell. No, I mean Adam fell when he fell, Cain fell when he fell, Lucifer fell when he fell. And I'm pretty sure
I don't
the
think it
scripture
happened at the same time. Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah. So the scripture,
I
I think the scripture backs up the sense that Lucifer fell at some point in like before the creation of Adam, and then his sin his sin creates this like space, I guess, or whatever. It creates this possibility, this temptation for Adam to be able to sin. Otherwise, all of creation would have just been
he's the tool of sin. He's the vessel of sin at that point in time. He's the only thing that both knows of sin and commits it willingly.
Right. And so in terms of eating of the tree, and again, I think you can probably pick this up. I'm not a fundamentalist. I'm not an evangelical Christian.
So a lot of this is metaphor, especially in Genesis.
Yeah, exactly. Extremely metaphorical or allegorical. And so when I read the tree of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, what I'm reading are the metaphysical, the sort of transcendent knowledge, good and evil. So when you say God shouldn't have created the tree and put it in the garden, are you saying he should not have created the knowledge of good and evil?
No, I'm saying he shouldn't have put the knowledge of good and evil in front of the people who could do it.
Yeah, so that seems like it would be a restriction.
Shouldn't have put the gun in front of the kid.
That seems like it would be a restriction, or at least I could see why he would want to imbue us with the knowledge of good and evil in some way.
Eventually, sure. I think that you could.
But that's why he would. That's why he would command them not to eat. So, listen, you guys aren't ready for this yet. Don't eat that. You can eat anything in the damn garden. You can learn about anything. You can learn about angelology,
but here's the thing.
Whatever. But just don't do that yet. And then Satan comes in. Hey, God doesn't know shit. You guys are cool.
You'll be equal to him.
You'll be equal to him. He just thinks he knows that you're just never gonna die or whatever, right? Or
but here's the thing: is that I wouldn't put
yeah
a gun in front of a kid and then tell him, "Don't take the gun." Like,
what if the gun? What if the gun? What?
It's for later. You can defend yourself with it. It can do greater goods.
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
I mean, I'm a little biased because I did grow up in South Carolina. That is actually how a lot of people raise their children to deal with guns. It's like they're in the house. There's the gun safe, the gun locker. You never touch that safe. Okay, you never go near that.
The tree wasn't in a safe.
The strictest rule. Well, you don't really know. I mean, metaphysically, it could have been a major barrier to actually betray God when you had never betrayed him before. It seems like it was
actually,
about.
I think it might have been easier because they didn't know of sin. They didn't even know that was a sin.
But it is such a privation of your entire existence. When all your entire existence is for the purpose of worship and love and communion with God, to do the literal only thing that he told you not to do, you can imagine. And they're immediately so
That's free
ashamed.
will, baby.
There's exactly. And so, but God's glory and mercy is so good.
So I won't give anyone with free will a fucking gun.
Right, and I think a lot of parents would probably disagree with you on that.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't give it to them when they're babies. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I would give them a gun eventually. Obviously, I'm okay with like firearms.
Well, what you would do if you wanted them to eventually be able to, I don't know, use a gun. It's a weird analogy, but fine. Use a gun for self-defense or for
I'm going to say
hunting.
able to, like, think of sin without committing sin. I think
if you want them to be able to ponder good and evil or think of sin without committing sin, sure. Then you would have some way of introducing that and doing it slowly and this and that. And that's if their free will accords with your plan. But free will is a good. that must be respected to have a reciprocal loving relationship. So there's absolutely no sense in which he can chain them to the radiator in his basement or something, you know, and say, and that would metaphysically that would be to remove the tree from the garden.
I don't think that necessarily locking them up is the best example for the tree. I think if you took away the tree, they would be very happy. I don't think that they would necessarily be like.
But then they would also never.
Place.
They would be very happy, but then they would also never get to understand good and evil, right?
Right, but that's what I'm saying is that you should introduce that to them slowly. You shouldn't just straight up go, if you take this thing. Also, you shouldn't instruct them that this is even here. You shouldn't put it there.
There's also, I mean, there's also the argument. Well, we've already gone, but that this evil, the badness, the quote unquote bad of putting the tree there or them disobeying God is rectified on this infinite heavenly time scale that like any bad, because of God's omnipotence, but also just the infinity of time he's working with, can be turned into the greatest possible good or a greater good.
I'm sure the Amalekites feel very great about Jesus.
Yeah, actually, I bet they would. I
don't know if they would.
The innocents, the innocent people who died, which also we could get into historically what those cities actually were, what harem was in the Old Testament, what that kind of command represents.
Even Pharaoh, like Pharaoh's hardened heart, like I'm sure he feels great about Jesus.
I mean, anybody that is saved by Jesus would feel great about Jesus. My quick point there was like, if there were innocent, which I'm sure there were, innocent Amalekite women, children, animals that died because of that command, that
he commanded to kill, yeah.
In my heart of hearts, I believe. But so you don't. But you already said you believe in divine justice. You believe in justice, that evil can be met with evil. That they cancel out.
That evil can be met with. I don't know if I said that they could be canceled.
Okay. Sorry, I'm actually projecting what Aquinas said onto you. We talked about yesterday on Monday how evil cancels itself out. So when God commands something that's like that, but it's against evil people, then that's a just judgment. That's not God
it's like
being
what he
evil.
Commanded.
Right.
The most apt example is what he commanded Michael to do to Lucifer.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That would be that would be the perfect, that would be like the highest order metaphysical like justice, right? I agree with that.
I think the highest order metaphysical justice would literally be. So personally, I have this view of the narrative of the Bible that as he did unto the people of the Old Testament, he did it unto himself in Jesus. I have fucked you guys for so long. Here you go. Like,
the way that I would put it is that you guys have fucked yourself for so long that I'm going to take on the pain of all of that fucking of yourself that you've been doing because I love you. I don't have to do that.
I think it's a bit of both. So I think that, I mean, he didn't have to forgive anyone, but like I think it's a bit of both. Personally, I think he thinks himself more equal to humanity than, at least in the narrative of the Bible, than humans are willing to portray him, right? Especially the apostles and Jesus himself. Right?
He thinks of himself, sorry, I missed that one word. To what of humanity? To wary?
Well, I think he thinks of himself as very close to humanity. In terms
I
think he's very humble in the New Testament about that, right? Especially
absolutely. Well, he is a human. I mean, Eloi, Eloi, lemme sabachthani. I mean, he is a human.
Exactly. And so by making himself human, he's like, listen, guys, I tried the whole Lord shit. I tried like guiding you. I tried that shit. Yeah. I tried killing all the Amalekites. I tried the flood. I gave you a rainbow.
This is the absolute wrong way to look at it, but I understand. Yeah.
Just hear me out. He's just like, just hear me out. And then they killed him. And he's
you're
like,
still thinking of God like as if he's constrained to some sort of temporality or like trying shit out. But it's like the second before he even creates Satan, he knows about the salvation that's going to be required. That personally, he knows what's going to be brought upon him. I like to ignore
that because that brings morality. Like that, I think that's morally abhorrent if he just creates the world to make suffering and not greater goods. Because I think there are more greater sufferings than greater goods in the Bible.
So you believe it's so just to be clear, you believe it is impossible for God to negate suffering, to negate bad, to create greater goods out of evil, which negates the evil. You think that is fundamentally logically
impossible for him to do.
Well, so if it's possible, then he would do it.
Well, okay, I agree. I don't think it's impossible for him to do it. I don't think he did it.
So, again, this is just presuppositional. I don't understand. You just don't. I don't think you
we
did
can,
it. So
we can
Yeah.
we can discuss it. I'm stating
Sure.
my opinion. We
Sure.
can discuss it. I'm not
Okay, let's
supposed to.
discuss. Yeah, let's get into that. Yeah. Why do you think that
So-
that he didn't do it like this? That he is an evil. You believe in? Okay, just you lay it out. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I mean, first thing I want to say is Comic Brendan. Maybe God is pro suffering, but like when is Satan against it? I don't.
Oh no,
think
this is
Satan's
what. No.
against suffering.
Do not get, do not get pulled
Oh,
into
right,
Comic
this guy,
Brandon's
yeah.
bullshit. He literally he tries to say the most absurd thing possible to get a reaction out of me and anyone else. I don't think he believes anything he types. So I would not get
Right
too I would not get too like caught up in that. But
But yeah, no, so I think generally,
yeah.
I would have to ask because I think it is the base stance that there are abhorrent things that happen.
Yes.
Right? Obviously, the problem of evil.
Yep.
Right. I don't want to just throw the problem of evil in your face because then you're just going to respond with, "Oh, there are possible greater goods," and it's like no one can disprove that.
Well, you can, yeah. So the logical problem, from my view, has been defeated, but the emotional problem of evil is powerful, extremely powerful. So I understand that.
Well, I mean, the logical part is like a massive presupposition. It's literally just that it will bring about greater good. Done. Like that's it. That's really the only answer. And I think until that's substantial.
No. The logical problem of evil is that, given the amount of suffering in the world, it is logically inconsistent with a God that is all good. But that's obviously not true because there's at least one possibility in which God could be all good and allow suffering. Therefore, the logical problem of evil is defeated. I mean, this is accepted throughout philosophy, I think.
Oh, I'm not talking about the problem of evil through its like actual.
You're talking about the
like,
emotional problem,
points.
which is still used.
I'm bringing up. I don't think that there is a greater good that can capitalize for the amount of suffering that has happened and will happen in the foreseeable future. I don't think it can happen, especially if we consider hell as infinite punishment. Because there are a lot more people, especially when the rapture happens. There's a lot more people that have gone to hell than gone to heaven. And when you consider the rapture, they're up in heaven. But there's a lot more people in hell suffering forever. A lot more than people in heaven are living in bliss forever.
Okay, you're gonna hate this, and I'm gonna paint myself as a heretic. But the way, at least possible explanation of the scriptural account of hell, and I have not. This is really. I don't want to like place myself outside of the church.
Eternal separation from God, is that it?
Well, that is the obvious one, but this is something that I believe is a unique position to me that I've never seen fleshed out. And probably because it's fallacious in some way. So I'm going to just say it, and then you tell me where you feel the problems. Okay. Given a Jungian type of like structure of the self, where you are basically composed of different different personalities that are like tied together into some like unified logos or something like that.
In the absence of free will, there would be separate aspects of you that can make each choice. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So the way that I think about it is like, there is jealous Reese, there is hateful Reese, there is impatient Reese, and angry Reese, and and in almost every meaningful sense, I'm a different person when I'm being angry Reese versus like blissed out like day on the beach, chill Reese.
You think you're just going to be sin astral projected into hell, and then the rest of you is going to go up.
Yeah, I don't see how the hateful, sinful parts of me could even enter heaven conceptually. So
that's the problem of heaven and free will. Yeah. But
it's not necessarily. Why can't a soul be purified and all the worst parts of it be sent to some eternal trash can? And I wouldn't even be mad about that.
It's a part of you. It's a part of your will. It's literally.
There are no parts in heaven.
No, but you were you.
Yeah.
Including all your flaws.
So I can't cut off my hand and throw it in the trash? That's logically...
No, but if God did that, I feel like that's very, very against free will.
No, it's not. I would... No, because I also choose God. So I'm okay with that. So then maybe... This is where it gets interesting.
Right, but
like
you could
someone
choose,
like...
hey, I don't want free will anymore. And then they just take it.
I could choose... Yeah, I mean, that is what will happen. My free will merge with God's free will. It is totally consensual.
So you're going to just give up your free will for being one with God?
the way I imagine it, I mean, I don't know how I don't know if this is dogmatic or if there is any dogma about this. I don't know how it could possibly be, but
Well,
the
it's
way I
not any of the
imagine it
Abrahamic
is that,
religions I've heard, so I don't know. It's
What's that?
interesting. I'll give you that.
What's
I said
that?
It's interesting. It's interesting. I'll give you that.
is it inconsistent?
No, I don't think so. Well, there's a few Old Testament scriptures, but I mean, it doesn't really matter considering that the New Testament really absolves that.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like I have to go through the New Testament and make sure I'm not contradicting anything that like Christ said or that the apostles said.
I'd read
that
Revelations. I'd read Revelations.
Yeah, Revelations would be the place to go for that.
It seems to contradict a bunch of Revelations.
Really?
Because it says it says specifically the people that are bad. Like I'm amalgamating a bunch of scriptures, but like
yeah,
the people that
I'm
are
just
bad
like,
will go to hell.
Yeah, then that's why I had to bring in this like Jungian, like basically the fact that you are composed of different people that acts as one single self on Earth, but could be separated
Which, I
like
mean,
the wheat from the chaff in a
guess-
purgation attempt.
I guess has some biblical stand, because if you're made in the image of God and God is in three persons, it kind of has like a stance in the Old Testament. I'm not sure about the New Testament.
Well, I'm gonna do more research. Again, this is like, I say this with so much trepidation because I really don't want to be a heretic or anything like that. More than anything, I don't want to blaspheme God. I don't want to say something that's actually truly untrue and that will lead people astray. So no one should
God
take
knows
that.
the souls of all those who speak of him, so there's no real matter of your words. It matters about what you think.
No, that's
especially
true. That's good. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
especially when you consider like that one verse where it's like, he who looks upon a woman with lust has committed adultery in his heart. Like, he doesn't care what you do. He cares what you think.
He cares what you think and what you know. Yeah, I mean, what you know in your heart. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. So that's why I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to say it. I'm going to do more research on it. Maybe someone else can pick up on that and help me out, like Sean or anyone in the chat. But anyway, that's just one possible address. That's one way to address the hell problem, which is a big problem. How does this all-loving, all-good God send people to hell? And then even on the more normal level, on the like theologically accepted level by pretty much all Christians, I do like uncontacted tribes in the Amazon. These people aren't just damned to hell. People from history that didn't know about Jesus, these people aren't just damned to hell.
The aliens.
What's that?
The aliens.
The aliens aren't just damned to hell. Oh, dude, I'm reading this sick C.S. Lewis book right now. It's his space trilogy, which I had no idea C.S. Lewis made sci-fi. It's freaking awesome. And the way he conceives of aliens, given the Christian framework, is so cool. It's basically his idea is that the angels are in the way that like the ancient people would conceptualize this. The stars and the planets with like
The stars are angels, yeah.
rational life, are sort of not angels themselves per se, but they're like the governance of the angels. And so they move through the heavens, and they have like a planet that one particular angel, Oyarsa, for instance, on Mars, she like manages the rational creatures and all the creatures on this particular planet. And then the first book is called Out of the Silent Planet. And the idea is that Earth is the planet whose angel fell. And that's why we have all this confusion. So the way he
Lucifer, is that it?
That Lucifer, yeah, Lucifer was the one
That's fun.
charged with Earth, and Earth is now this like sort of like prison war zone.
Have you ever gotten into Warhammer?
You know, my friend was telling me a lot about that war. Yeah, vaguely, but I haven't like. I should, now that I've gotten 2 recommendations, I should look at some of that lore and stuff.
You know the whole sacrifice yourself for the sins of mankind thing?
Yeah, he was trying to flesh that out to me. Well,
Yeah.
bring that up because I don't remember exactly what the idea was. But
So, Warhammer lore is a lot simpler than people try and make it out to be.
okay.
Basically, the Emperor is Jesus. He's Jesus.
Okay.
He was a lot of historical figures in history.
Right.
There are these things called psychers, and they have huge psychic power. They can reach into basically the other world, right?
Yeah.
It's called the warp, and they can make things. It's basically where all souls go.
Cool. Yeah.
And through like a bunch of people basically combining their souls, they create the Emperor.
Interesting.
He sacrifices himself for humanity.
Yeah.
Does all that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So he's like, fuck this. Because they create AI. So essentially what we're doing now.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
AI
yeah.
eventually is like, man, fuck these guys.
That's so
and
funny.
tries to take over everything.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then essentially Jesus comes in and goes, you are not made in my image. Get the fuck out of here. Like,
wow. Sweet.
and destroys all of it and outlaws all AI.
Wow, interesting. That has somewhat of a Dune like flavor to it as well.
It gets so much worse.
Oh yeah.
So essentially, he has like 12 sons or 18 sons, and he they all have different aspects. Like one's really angry, one's really diplomatic, etc., etc.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right.
And one is basically just fucking an angel, right? He's basically Angel Jesus.
Nice.
His name is Sanguinius.
Oh, this is the
And
guy
he
my
has-
buddy was telling me about, Sanguinius. Yeah.
He has fucking wings and everything, right?
Right.
He's the only person who questions the Emperor. The only person. He like
Interesting.
everyone else is like, we'll join you, let's go, you're powerful, you're smart,
Uh-huh.
all that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he goes, what if I say no? And the Emperor's like, huh? What? And he just goes, well, I mean, like, you won't, because I know your heart, you're good.
Yeah, yeah,
And he
yeah.
just goes, you're right, but I want you to leave everyone that I have liberated on this planet alone, separate from your planet.
Interesting.
And he sits there in silence for 10 minutes
Wow.
and just stares at him and goes, okay. And then his son goes, then let's talk of the future, father.
Wow. Interesting. So Sanguinius sort of representing Lucifer here.
No, actually, that comes later.
Oh, okay,
Horus
okay.
is Lucifer.
Okay.
So Horus is very like Sanguinius, except he's a bit balder.
A bit balder.
He didn't question him. Like he was one of the people who was like very good, and he basically followed him without question.
Yeah.
And then there's these three other gods that represent the rest of alien society that exists, right? Because at this point, humanity has had space travel and everything, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The Emperor even has a fucking flaming sword, but like,
yeah.
there's like a lot of aliens.
Cool.
And they had a war a long time ago,
Yeah.
and that created a lot of rage. Created the
Interesting.
war god named Korn.
Interesting.
They had the elves that humanity hates, by the way, had a
Right.
lot of kith, and so they created the lust god of Slanesh.
Oh shit. Okay.
And
okay.
then there's Zinch, which is basically, you know what an ex machina is?
Yeah, machine of God. Like it just went. You mean in the story sense or like in the
Story sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Basically, when you just drop in the answer to the problem, like from.
He's one big fucking ex machina.
Okay,
right?
got you.
He's literally just bullshit. His powers are bullshit. He's a stupid idiot.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
there's Nurgle, the god of rot. Everything is a cycle. It will rot, it will die, it will create something new, it will rot, it will die, it will create something new. He's called Grandfather Nurgle. He's just all rot, sickness, and
Rot.
death.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's the four chaos gods, and the Emperor is like, fuck them. We
Yeah.
can't go into the warp because they control that. We're not going to use psychic magic because they control that.
Huh.
So we're just going to build this thing called the Webway, which is our controlled version of the warp. Like think of it like a tunnel through space.
Yeah, sure.
In this like alternate universe, like he can go through it without being affected by the chaos god.
Got you. Cool.
So he creates salvation basically for humanity.
Oh, then that makes sense. Okay, got you.
Except someone went over and said, "Hey Horus," and this is all the chaos gods.
Yeah.
Horus is the strongest of his soldiers, by the way. This is basically Lucifer.
Okay, got you.
Think of Sanguinius like Michael.
Okay. Yep.
And they go over, and he goes, "You're his favorite son, right?" And Horus is like, "Yes, I'm his favorite son. He loves me."
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, actually, he said that Sanguinius was his favorite son."
Huh.
And Horus was like, "Absolutely." And took all of these powers of chaos, went to Earth, which is called Terra,
Yep.
and just laid fucking waste to the place, right?
Yeah.
And
Classic
then the
sibling
Emperor-
rivalry.
Yeah, so he kills Sanguinius.
Yep.
So imagine if Lucifer did his rebellion
Luc-
and
yeah,
he
and
won
won.
against Michael and just faced God down, and God was like, "I don't like you," and he
Yeah.
just boom, And so, like, a lot of people still exist after death in this universe.
Okay.
Horus
Cool.
is the only person who's ever just been fucking blipped out of
Oh, he
existence.
got like blipped out. No, that's
He's the
funny.
only person that
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that is crazy.
But just before, unfortunately,
Yeah.
he was able to to psychically wound and like bodily wound the emperor.
Interesting.
And so
Is the
he,
emperor?
in his last
Yeah. Sorry, keep
he
going.
in his last moment said, "Place me on the throne of the webway, so that I can power it."
Oh.
And he put himself on the throne, basically the cross, right?
Yeah.
And sacrificed himself so that he could power the webway to make it so people can go into the stars safely from this chaos god.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
it's
he's
very Christian.
Yeah, and oh dude, you should see the armor. It's all
Oh,
Christian.
yeah?
There's skulls everywhere and everything. Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I like that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I'll have to watch. I know there's like videos that kind of break down some of the more nitty gritty stuff. I bet it's pretty sweet to get into.
Yeah, and obviously there's like for the emperor, for the god emperor, the main thing that he hated to be called was a god. He was not a god because he hated the chaos gods. He wanted to be known as a man, just like everyone else, and that everyone should aspire to be him.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I would say. It's like, it's really when you're a god, in the biggest sense of the term, you really are not competitive with any other being. So, you know, if you can be wounded, if you can be, I don't know, if you even like really have some legitimate concern about usurping or anything like that, there's just no meaningful sense. You're like a lowercase g god. You're like a pagan god or something like that.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
There's a literal ascension that happens when he sits on that throne.
Okay.
Because his consciousness gets teleported into the web,
into the web, right?
The webway, and so he, in the biggest sense, in all these chaos gods, he becomes the only order god.
Ah, nice.
And
I
so
like
now,
that. Yeah.
And so now, through absorbing all of this psychic energy,
yeah,
and he is a literal god, and there's no one that can deny that anymore because it's called Warhammer 40K.
Yeah.
This happened in 30K. It's been 10,000 years since that he was put on that throne.
Right.
And they all refer to him as the God Emperor, and that is the Golden Throne.
The God Emperor. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And
freaking
like
cool.
he has angels and stuff. Like the unfortunate thing is a lot of his sons are dead. Sanguinius died that day in a way that he can't be revived. He's probably still around, but he can't be revived.
Interesting.
And like there's Rogel Dorn, who's basically Bob the Builder.
Bob the Builder.
He just likes building shit.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that too. There's always some sort of archetype, some sort of myth about like the ultimate builders, the dwarves or the whatever. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Sanguinius is his chapter is called the Blood Angels.
Cool.
So very on the nose.
Yep, sanguine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the fucking it's very Christian. It's very
yeah. Surprisingly so. A lot of these like lore things, maybe they'll throw a little bit of a Easter egg in there or something, but for the most part, it's like they try to. A lot of video games, a lot of like I don't know, fantasy novels. They sort of enact some sort of like pagan mythology, which is why C.S. Lewis and why this Warhammer thing, even though it is like super pagan, but it's actually more like angelology and demonology. It sounds like. But
that's very what this is too. Like it's literally called the Imperium and the Inquisition.
Yeah, right. So it's just I think there is something more interesting about monotheism fundamentally that you can like get more in depth with. I
think for us because we're in the Western world, like
acknowledging my bias in that sense, but I mean it's just like when there is one power which is uncompetitive with the other powers, that and if you can still somehow to manage to make an antagonist that feels genuine to the reader, or just like real.
It's narratively impressive, yeah.
It's really narratively impressive. So that's not like it always
Force
works.
in Star Wars.
Exactly, like the Force in Star Wars, or exactly. Or and like Aslan and Narnia and stuff like that. It just is really impressive. It is really interesting. It speaks to the heart.
Yeah.
And on that note, we have been going for a while now, so I'm gonna wrap it up. And this was a great conversation with you, my friend. I really appreciate that. I hope we can get you back at some point and keep it going and talk about other things. And then for everyone in the chat, thank you for joining us. Even you, Comic Brandon. Even you. I'll look up Jeebus the movie. Your buddy Rodney Norman is God. All right, I believe in him now. How about that?
Rodney Norman, dude.
All right, fine. I'm no longer a Christian. I'm a Rodney Norman.
Rono, dude. He's a Rono now.
All right, anyway, thank you, everybody. Super fun stream. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you were missing it, like Comic Brandon, I know you've been missing some of these coming in late. Hit that notification bell. It'll just tell you when it's going. Not that you have to join, but you'll see it, and you'll know. So, appreciate you guys. See you next time.